This flirtatious, enchanting girl who looks so easy to push over. Who would have thought that hidden beneath that body was a terrifying power strong enough to crack open your skull? Just as our heroine Shoha transferred to Decealer Academy, the admissions teacher assigned her a dormitory. Looking at the room in front of her, Shoha's face was full of happiness. Just as she was happily tidying up her room, the door opened. Their eyes met. The air was thick with awkwardness. Her secret had been discovered. Looking at the stunned Shoha, the young man hurriedly said, I left a book here, trying to dispel the embarrassment. Snapping back to her senses, Shoha quickly explained to him, "No, this is a misunderstanding. Even though things look like this right now, I know it must be hard for you to believe me." She tried to explain, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm really not a vampire." Shoha thought, "It's over now. I finally managed to get into this school." Looking at the tearful Shoha, the young man said seriously, "I know you're not a vampire. I believe you. A vampire could never get in here. After all, our school's entrance screening is that strict." The crying Shoha instantly felt like she'd met an angel. Looking at him with her big shining eyes, she said, "Thank you for believing me. Everyone probably thinks that, but I really don't want to be mistaken for a vampire." At this point, Shoha slowly lowered her head. "I hate vampires more than anyone else in the world." Seeing how serious Shoha was, the young man was clearly startled. Could it be? Could this man be the legendary vampire? Why does Shoha hate vampires so much? Is there some hidden reason behind it? What exactly did these villagers see to make them so terrified? Look at the bite marks on his neck. Not a single drop of blood is left. This must have been done by a vampire. But nothing like this has ever happened in our village. Ever since that child, Shoha, moved here, bad things have kept happening. Could this child's death have something to do with Shoha? Time rewound 10 years. A blonde little boy was trying to strike up a conversation with a little girl. "Everyone says you're a vampire." The little girl, who had been keeping her head down, looked up. "What?" So the little boy repeated himself. "Are you really a vampire?" Hearing his words, the little girl silently turned her head away, clearly saying, "I don't want to deal with you. Go away already." But the little boy reached out his hand. "My name is Chris. This is probably the first time I've seen you come out during the day." Seeing that the girl still didn't want to respond, Chris couldn't help teasing her. "Your name is?" "No, it's not. My name is..." Before the girl could finish, he said, "Your name is Shoha, right?" "I actually already knew." Chris grinned mischievously, pleased with himself. "Everyone says you're the vampire who just moved here. Is that true?" "I'm not a vampire," Shoha shouted at Chris. After saying that, she closed her eyes stubbornly, as if to say, "No matter what you say, I'm ignoring you." But Shoha had underestimated Chris. This boy was absurdly outgoing, moved house several times, doesn't go out during the day, roams around alone at night. At this point, Chris deliberately tried to scare Shoha. "I even heard you catch pigeons and eat them." Shoha finally snapped. "That's not true. At least the last one isn't." Shoha helplessly covered her face. "How could there be such ridiculous rumors?" Chris innocently said, "If you go out and explain it to everyone, wouldn't that solve it?" Shoha hugged her legs, looking dejected. She thought, "No matter how much I explain, no one will believe me. And besides, if I accidentally use some strange power in front of people, then everyone will think I'm a vampire. I'm afraid the rumor might be true. But I don't think you're a vampire, because I was born this way too. If you feel like you're different from everyone else, then you become scared of being around people. A lot of people say all kinds of things about those who are different from them. I once heard people say my parents must regret having me, and I was afraid that might be true. But I don't think that way anymore, because I know my parents love me. So don't let other people's nonsense affect you." Chris smiled softly, then held out his hand. "Let's be friends." "Okay." And just like that, the two children with similar experiences became friends. From then on, they spent their days happily together. Shoha also told Chris her biggest secret. She thought he would be afraid. But not only was Chris not scared, he even praised her power as really cool. "When the day comes that you truly believe in me, then you can bite me, okay?" But one day, something suddenly happened to Chris. At that moment, Shoa's mind went blank, filled with only one thought: save Chris. No matter what others said, she couldn't lose this friend. So Shoha rushed into the chaos. Using her power, she found Chris. Seeing Shoha in pain, Chris said, "Shoha, you came to save us. No matter what others say about you, I believe in you. Someone as kind as you could never be a vampire. I always thought my life was full of misfortune, but now I understand. Everything happened so I could meet you, so I could cherish this even more." Because of vampires, she lost her very first friend, the one beam of light that had shone into her world. Did Chris really die? And what kind of story will unfold between the vampirized Chris and Shoha? Let's wait and see. What does it feel like to have such a handsome guy ask your name? Just look at Shoha. At that moment, Shoha's little face turned bright red. She was so excited she could barely speak. And me? My name. I'm Shuha. My name is Shoha. Shoha is a lovely name. Hearing him praise her name, Shoha became a little flustered and just stood there blankly. Don't you want to know my name? Seeing the man respond, she stammered, no. I mean, yes, I do want to know your name. Seeing Shoha's incoherent answer, the young man smiled. Haha, it feels like I'm forcing you, but I'll tell you anyway. My name is Healy. I'm a 12th year student at the Sealer Academy. Let's get along well from now on. Next time we meet, I'll greet you first. Shoha stared blankly at Healy. Oh, okay. And just like that, Shoha made her first friend at the academy. That evening, several extremely handsome guys had gathered together, and Healy was among them. From the looks of it, they were arguing about something. What nonsense are you talking about? How can we be friends with a human? I already exchanged names with her. We agreed to be friends. Her name is Shoha. We can't make friends with other people, the silver-haired young man said anxiously. And there's no need to. Solon looked at Healy seriously. Solon, I know what you're worried about, but that girl is different. She feels a lot like us. Hearing Healy's words, everyone was shocked. Could she be one of our kind? Then she shouldn't have been able to enter this school. Healy recalled the first time he saw Shoha. No, she's not one of our kind. Even though she isn't, there's an inexplicable attraction about her. Then the blonde young man said with a wicked grin, Brother Healy, don't tell me you've fallen for her? Solon looked a little downcast. How could we possibly have feelings like that? And even if we did, we can't. Even if we get along well with humans, in the end they'll still hate us, distance themselves from us, or even kill us. The silver-haired young man continued, That's right. Getting too close to us would only put her in more danger. In short, from now on, none of you should get too close to that transfer student. While they were arguing intensely, none of them realized that Shoha was standing right behind them, and she heard their entire conversation. So had Shoha, who had just made friends, already been disliked all over again? What does it feel like to be shown around the school by so many cool, aloof, handsome guys? Just moments ago, Shoha had accidentally overheard their conversation and sadly lowered her head. She hadn't expected to be disliked so quickly. Before she could sink into that sadness, a blonde boy interrupted her. He held out his hand to Shoha. I'm Sien. Let's get along from now on. Then a red-haired boy shoved Sien aside. Sien causes trouble all day long. You'd better stay away from him. But you can get closer to me. I'm Gino. Seeing how enthusiastic the two were, Shoha happily greeted them too. Hello, Gino. The silver-haired boy rubbed his hand against his clothes, then reached out to Shoha. I'm Miyan. Don't take what Solon said earlier to heart. We didn't agree with him. We think being friendly to a transfer student is basic human decency. Hearing Ian's words, Shoha thanked him. Then she secretly glanced at Solon, thinking, so he's Solon? His eyes are full of disdain, and he said all that just now, too. He really does hate me. When Solon noticed Shoha sneaking a look at him, he huffily turned his head away. Looking at everyone in front of her, Shoha thought, this is the first time I've ever been welcomed by so many people. Are they all Healy's friends? How exactly did Healy introduce me to them? Just then, Solon said flatly, what are you all doing? Let's go. Unexpectedly, no one paid him any attention, and they even told him to go by himself. Friendship capsized in an instant. Shoha, where are you going? Healy looked at her. I just wanted to walk around the school. Do you want us to show you around? I'll take you to the library first. Hearing that they could accompany Shoha around campus, everyone said they wanted to come too. Was this what being the group favorite felt like? While Shoha and the others toured the school, what kind of story would unfold? If you were in danger and protected by a bunch of handsome guys, wouldn't you feel an urge to marry one of them? Before long, the group arrived at the library. Solon, the little invisible one, was among them too. Everyone happily introduced the school to Shoha. Only then did she learn that although they weren't in the same year, they were extremely close. It turned out they had grown up together at the same orphanage. After touring the library, they came to the playground. Gino introduced Moonball to Shoha. The league is about to start, and everyone's training. The remaining two are probably over there. Shoha asked in confusion. The remaining two? Normally, there are 7 of us hanging out together, but those two are taking this league way too seriously. Then Ian chimed in. Both of them are super competitive. Though this year, we're definitely winning the championship too. Seeing Ian so confident, Shoha asked in confusion. Moonball League? What is that? Before she could finish, a moonball suddenly hurtled towards Shoha. At that critical moment, everyone reacted as if facing a great enemy and ran in front of her to protect her. Ian chopped it with one hand and smashed the moonball to pieces. At that moment, two players came running over. Saw the ball flew over here. No one got hurt, right? Seeing Ian's dark expression, the two hurriedly apologized. These two were the last members of the 7-person group, Zakanoa. Ian turned back and anxiously asked Shioha if she was hurt. Meanwhile, Healy had pulled Shioha tightly into his arms. Healy looked a little embarrassed and quickly let go of her. Are you okay? Blushing, Xiue replied softly, I'm fine. Thanks to all of you. Thank you, everyone, for making time to show me around the school today. Then, under everyone's bewildered gazes, Shioha ran off with a flushed face. She was now standing in front of her dormitory door, breathing heavily. That was almost too embarrassing to survive. It was the first time she had ever been surrounded by boys like that. Just as she was thinking that, a voice came from behind her. Do you know my name? The man was Solon. Solon had come to find Shioha alone. What did he want? We'll find out next time. Shioha's teary eyes are absolutely adorable. Just what did Solon say to make her so upset? Looking at Solon as he slowly approached, Shioha timidly said, You're called Solon, right? I heard them call you that. Hearing the answer he wanted, Sundara Solon snorted and turned to leave. Just then, Shioha said to him, Thank you for earlier. Solon looked completely confused. Thank me for what? When the ball came flying over on the playground, you pulled me aside. That's how I avoided it. Having his little secret exposed, Sundara Solon couldn't help blushing. Then he immediately changed his tone. I wasn't helping you. There was dust on your clothes. I was brushing it off, that's all. Anyway, thank you. From now on, Before she could finish, Solon cut her off. Don't even think about being friends with us in the future. We don't make friends with other people, especially you. Hearing Solon's words, Shioha froze. When he saw Shioha staring at him with watery eyes, Solon panicked. What kind of expression is that? Shioha said tearfully, Got it. From now on, I won't even greet any of you. Sundara Solon instantly reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Greeting us? Greet us if you want. Say less. Say more. Say whatever you want. Do whatever you want, okay? It had to be said, Shioha had completely taken control of its Sundara. The reason I told you not to get too close to us isn't because I hate you. Forget it. I'm not saying anymore. Even if I say not to get too close, they won't listen to me anyway. So you don't need to take what I said to heart. Afterward, the two said goodnight and went to rest. Meanwhile, the 7-person group was talking about something in the dormitory. I think I understand how Brother Healy feels. That strange feeling of being inexplicably drawn to her. The others echoed him. Exactly. That girl Shioha clearly isn't one of our kind. But I feel as if my heart is being controlled by some indescribable, strange force. Yeah, how should I put it? In short, it's like wanting everything to go exactly the way she wishes. At that moment, Healy voiced everyone's doubts. Everyone immediately said, That's exactly it. If you had a power like Shioha's, what would you use it for? Let's discuss it in the comments. What does it feel like to go to school with a handsome guy and be watched by the whole school? Just look at our heroine. After a night's rest, Shioha welcomed her first day of classes at the Sealer Academy. The moment she opened the door, she saw Healy waiting in front of her dormitory room. Shioha, let's go together. Faced with such an invitation, Shioha was a little dumbfounded. What? Where to? I wanted to go to class with you, so I waited here for a while. Didn't we agree to be friends? Hearing Healy's words, Shioha was a little flustered. Is he worried I'll feel awkward since I just transferred here? Healy is so gentle. Shioha thought to herself. And just like that, the scene of the two going to class together became a beautiful sight on campus. But Shioha looked rather uneasy. Students kept greeting Healy along the way. Watching Healy smile and greet everyone back, Shioha couldn't help thinking, Healy is really so popular. Well, that's not surprising. He's handsome and so gentle. So Healy is this kind to everyone. Noticing Shioha's strange mood, Healy leaned close and whispered in her ear, Do you feel uncomfortable walking with me? No, not at all. Don't say that. Shioha denied it immediately. On the contrary, she was worried that others might dislike her because she had joined him. Did Solon say something to you? Shioha was instantly shocked. How does he know? There was no malice in what he said, so don't take it to heart. The reason Solon said that isn't because there's anything wrong with you. It's because we have a secret. At that moment, Healy showed Shioha his supernatural ability, telepathy. After witnessing his power, Shioha could barely speak properly. Then Healy said, Well then, study hard in class. Snapping out of it, Shioha hurriedly replied, You too. Then the two separated and went to their classrooms. Unexpectedly, Xian was in the same class as her. Xian warmly greeted her. Shioha, come sit next to me. But that seat already belongs to someone. It's fine. Solon can sit somewhere else. At that moment, Shioha felt a chill behind her. When she turned around, she saw Solon standing behind her with a smile that wasn't really a smile. This kind of group favorite treatment is truly enviable. Next time, everyone will come clean to Shoha and show her their abilities. Look at this delicate-looking girl. She lifts a 100-kilogram dumbbell like it's nothing. The sight left everyone stunned. Shoha, class is over now. What are you planning to do? Today I'm going to tidy up my room. I gave it a simple cleaning yesterday, but I didn't get to do it thoroughly. There's still a lot of stuff to throw out. Hearing Shoha's words, Sien said he wanted to help too. In a hallway, Shoha suddenly heard her name in her mind. Turning around, she realized it was Healy speaking to her through telepathy. Shoha, how are classes today? Luckily, Sien and I are in the same class, so I felt pretty at ease. Then Shoha shared with Healy how she felt about her first day of class. Healy stared blankly at Shoha and at the noisy troublemakers bickering non-stop behind her, confused about what these people were doing trailing after her. Shoha explained to Healy, because I said I was going to clean my room, everyone said they wanted to help, so we all came together. Healy slowly moved closer to Shoha and said through telepathy, then, can I come too? Looking at Healy as he came closer, Shoha blushed a little. Of course you can. So the group came to Shoha's dormitory to help clean up. Watching everyone bustling around, Shoha felt a little embarrassed. Let me help too. I'll carry this box. Then, under everyone's astonished gaze, Shoha picked up the box. The contents inside were revealed, and there was actually a 100-kilogram dumbbell in it. The room instantly fell into a terrifying silence. Shoha panicked, not knowing what to do. Just then, warm-hearted Healy smiled, took the box from Shoha's hands, and comforted her. It's okay, Shoha. Don't I have this kind of ability too? Do you think someone like me is scary? Or would you hate me? What? Of course not. No, absolutely not. We feel the same way. At that moment, the barely noticeable Solon noticed that Healy was sending telepathic messages to Shoha and was immediately startled. Everyone broke out in a cold sweat, unsure what to do. Shoha, you'll keep our secret for us, right? Of course. I absolutely won't tell anyone. Then Healy said gently, then let's call it an exchange of secrets. At that moment, Sien showed Shoha his supernatural ability and startled her. It turned out Sien's power was being able to cling to walls. Ian, on the other hand, possessed immense strength, while Gino could produce flames from his palms. Inside the room, only little invisible Solon still hadn't shown his power. Seeing Shoha's expectant eyes, Solon looked extremely awkward. WH, what are you looking at? It's not like I have that kind of thing. Oh, I see. Seeing Shoha look a little disappointed, Solon became even more embarrassed. Dull. But I'm not showing it to you. Then he left the dormitory. Not long after Solon left, the others also said goodbye to Shoha. Watching them leave, Shoha sank into thought. How could they all have such amazing abilities? Wait, what am I thinking? I've been misunderstood and wrong my whole life. Am I really going to become just like those people who bullied me? Ever since Chris left, Healy is the only one who believed in me. And I believe in Healy too. If someone like me exists in this world, then of course people like Healy and those friends must exist too. That's right. From now on, I won't be alone anymore. Elsewhere, several uninvited guests climbed into the academy, their expressions grim and their intentions clearly hostile. What exactly do they want with Healy? Are Healy and the others going to be in danger? What happened that made Shoha lash out at these unwelcome visitors? It turned out that after Shoha said goodbye to Healy and the others, she noticed one bag of trash still hadn't been thrown away. While she was taking out the trash, a groping hand suddenly reached toward her. Startled, Shoha instantly grabbed the hand. With a single throw, she slammed the person behind her hard onto the ground. Who are you? Are you a vampire? Shoha asked, still shaken. Just then, two more people charged at Shoha. You bastard! How dare you lay a hand on? Before he could finish, Shoha turned around and landed a devastating punch straight to the kidney, leaving one of them completely crippled. My god, even Nazhake got knocked down. Who are you? I should be the one asking that. Are you vampires? Hearing Shoha's words, the purple-haired young man twisted his face angrily. What do you mean, vampires? Take that back right now. Just as the two sides stood in tense confrontation, a bespectacled young man slowly walked over. Please, don't misunderstand. We're not vampires. To us, that's no different from an insult. Then the young man who had been punched in the side chimed in. I absolutely can't tolerate people mistaking me for a vampire. More than anyone else in this world. We hate vampires, Shoha said a little awkwardly. Me too. My name is Shoha. I'm really sorry. You scared me, and I reacted without thinking. Ken looked embarrassed too and quickly waved his hands. It's okay. I should be the one apologizing. Sorry for scaring you. You're Shoha, right? I'm Najake. Sorry I suddenly rushed at you. I'm Tahi, and he's called Jin. Shoha looked at the man in front of her. Your name is Kan, right? You don't seem to be wearing our school uniform. Did you come here for something? We're students from Yuching Academy. We came here to find someone. Before he could finish, Zakanoa stepped in front of Shioha, shielding her behind him. Do you need something from a student or a school? Shouldn't I be the one asking you that? Now that the two sides had met, the atmosphere that had just calmed down began to turn tense again. A fight could break out at any moment. What exactly happened that made gentle Healy reveal such a fierce look? Just moments ago, after the people from Yuching Academy saw Zakanoa, the atmosphere that had just eased immediately became tense. Kin said darkly, "You know about the murder that happened recently, right? A student from our school was killed." Shoha was startled too. She never expected the victim to be from Yuching Academy. So what does that have to do with us? Hearing Zakanoa's words, Tahi said through gritted teeth, "Nothing to do with you? In my opinion, it has everything to do with you." Hearing Zakanoa's tone, Kan's group completely lost their tempers. Can you take responsibility for those words? You chose a night with such bright moonlight to come find us. Isn't that because you know you can't beat us under normal circumstances? Bastard, Nazake shouted, then charged straight at Zakanoa. The instant the two clashed, Shoha stepped in and blocked them both. "Stop it, both of you. Don't fight." Nazake, who had lost control, kept growling under his breath. Zakanoa, on the other hand, was stunned. "What's going on? She stopped me? How could she be this strong?" Then Noah walked over. "We thought they were bullying you. That's not it. It was just a small misunderstanding. So please don't fight." Blue light began to glow around Zakanoa. "What are all of you doing out here at this hour?" A voice rang out. The one who arrived was Healy. The moment he saw Shioha standing in the middle of the conflict, the usually mild-tempered Healy looked so grim his face seemed ready to drip water. He said angrily, "All of you, stay away from Shioha." Then Healy walked to her side. "Shioha, you're not hurt, are you?" "No, that's good. I'll walk you back to your room. It's dangerous outside this late. Go back." Just then, an untimely voice rang out. "Wait, you think you can just leave? We still have things to say." "I have nothing to say to you. Get the hell out of our school." "The ones who killed our school's student were you, right? Just because you say it wasn't, that makes it true? We would never do something like that. Do you have proof it wasn't you? Then do you have proof it was us? Do you think we came empty-handed? Do you think we'd come without at least that much evidence?" Both sides kept shouting at each other. Healy was beginning to lose patience. "If it were us, what exactly would you do about it? Even if we did it, what could you possibly do? Or will things escalate from here? Let's wait and see." This little werewolf is seriously overestimating himself, actually trying to attack Healy. Just as the two were about to start fighting, Shoha tightly grabbed Healy's hand. "Don't fight. Healy, tie you too." Seeing Shoha so anxious, Healy gradually calmed down. "I am sorry, Shuhe. Sorry for scaring you. I won't fight." Once he had calmed down, Healy looked at Kansas. "I know why you suspect us, but it really wasn't us. I hope you can believe us." Hearing Healy's words, Ken fell into thought. "You expect us to believe you just because you say so? Why should we? It doesn't matter if you don't believe us. But at least don't start a fight here right now. Can't you see you frightened, Shoha? If you really want to settle this, the Moonball League is coming up soon anyway. How about deciding it there? Not with this kind of brute force brawl. Let's compete fairly on the field." "Sorry, Shoha. I scared you just now. For your sake, I'll let them off this time." At that moment, Shoha still hadn't fully recovered from the tense atmosphere. It's okay. This matter and the Moonball League are two different things, so you'd better not act rashly. We'll be watching you at all times. And when the Moonball League comes, we'll crush you just the same. Fine, I'll be waiting. Let's go. Are we really just leaving like this? Do they really think they're going to win the Moonball League again this time? Other people will be joining us in this match. We can win. So the people from Yuching Academy left in a noisy crowd. Healy gently said to Shoha, "How about we head back too?" Okay. And just like that, everyone, like knights escorting a princess, accompanied Shoha on the way back. As they walked, Healy apologized to her. "I am sorry. We almost ended up fighting in front of you. It's okay. And after I told you all to stop, you did stop, didn't you? That's enough." Then Shoha lowered her head, as if thinking about something. At that moment, Healy hadn't actually done anything, but instinctively, I felt I had to stop him. If I hadn't, it felt like something terrible would have happened. Shoha looked at Healy. He was back to his usual self, completely different from before. Meanwhile, under the moonlight, Solon raised his hand toward the sky, and fur rapidly began to appear on his body. "You're a werewolf?" Solon turned around. He saw Enji standing behind him. I suddenly realized that although we've met a few times, we've never properly introduced ourselves. "My name is Enji. You probably already know I'm a werewolf, but I'm not a mixed blood like you." Solon's secret had been discovered. Why exactly was Enji looking for Solon? What kind of scheme do the werewolves have? Because even I can't understand my own existence. What happened? To make Solon say something like that? Just moments ago, little werewolf Enji had seen Solon transform. I am not like you. Seeing Solon desperately trying to explain, Enji laughed. There's no need to hide it. I already saw it. Still, I never expected something like this. A vampire-werewolf hybrid actually exists, whether from history or instinct. Before he could finish, Solon cut him off. We're natural enemies, aren't we? Why should I answer your questions? Enji shrugged. You're right. You're under no obligation to answer. If you don't want to talk, then don't. I was just curious, so I asked. More importantly, why did you come to our school? And at this hour, we came because there are some things we wanted to ask you. You know about the murder that happened recently, right? A student from our school died. There were very clear bite marks on the neck, and not a single drop of blood left in the body. So you think we did it? Solon glared at Enji furiously. No, it's just that in this area, only your group is nearby. We would never do something like that. Though it would be a lie to say we never feel that kind of urge. But aren't you the same? Especially on nights like this, when it's close to the full moon. That's right, on nights with moonlight this bright. We really do feel a strong urge pushing us to follow our primal instincts. But even so, we would never hurt humans. We're the same. We're not like the others. No, more accurately, those others are nothing like us. And what makes you think you're different? You just asked me how a werewolf hybrid could exist, right? I can't answer that question, because even I can't understand my own existence. And it's not just me. We're all the same. It's as if we were manufactured somewhere. We can't even understand ourselves. In any case, we didn't do that. Believe it or not, we're not begging you to. I hope what you're saying is true too. After all, half of you is of the same kind as us. At that moment, people from Yuching Academy were calling for Enji. I've got to go. Next time we meet, let's at least greet each other. See you. Take care. And there, only Solon remained, left standing in the wind. Next time, Shoa's power will gradually come to light. Brother Healy, who exactly is that girl? What happened that made Zakanoa so shocked? Just moments ago, Healy and the others had safely escorted Shoa back to her dormitory. Healy said, gently, next time you need to take out the trash, remember to call us to go with you, especially after dark. Shoa happily replied, got it. And you two are Noah and Zakanoa, right? Thank you for coming to help me just now. Did you hear the commotion and come over? Speaking of which, Healy, how did you get there? I just happened to pass by. Really? Thank you, Healy, for coming. It was nothing. Good night. With her face flushed red, Shoha thought, I almost said, I'm really glad you came. Then Shoha raised her head. And Noah, Zakanoa, good night to you too. Thank you. Healy slowly stepped closer to Shoha. Good night to you too, Shoha. Seeing Healy so close at hand, Shoha fled back into her dormitory. Brother Healy, who exactly is that girl? Her name is Shoha. She transferred here a few days ago. You two haven't properly greeted her yet, right? Zakanoa anxiously asked. What exactly is that girl, Shoha? She is definitely not an ordinary person. Noah and I just finished moonball practice and were on our way back when we suddenly sensed a very strange, abnormal fluctuation, so we went to investigate. And what we found was that girl, Shoha, standing there. It was the first time I'd ever felt such an overwhelmingly powerful fluctuation. That's right, just when we were about to fight those guys, that girl, Shoha, stopped us. The two of us couldn't disobey her at all. It was like her words carried a binding force. Could she be one of our kind? No, she isn't. According to Shoha, she hates vampires more than anyone in the world. Meanwhile, back in her dormitory, Shoha recalled Kan's words. You think we came empty-handed? Do you think we don't even have that much evidence? Why did he say that? Could Lee and his friends really have something to do with that case? At this moment, Shoha was starting to feel a little suspicious of Lee and the others. Can they clear away her doubts? And how will the two sides get along from here? Let's look forward to what happens next. What is going on? Shoha was actually grabbed by a pale, gaunt-faced person. Seeing that someone meant her harm, it turned out that just a few days earlier, Sien had invited Shoha out alone. Unexpectedly, the prickly Solon went and tattled to the others. But while they had their schemes, Sien had his own, so he deliberately told everyone the wrong time for the date. Then he secretly went on the outing with Shoha, just as Sien went to buy the tickets. Healy contacted Shoha through telepathy. Shoha, are you at the square? I'm at the square. Didn't you say you had something urgent to take care of today? Not something urgent, something important. One important thing. Seeing you. Shoa's face instantly turned bright red. She stuffed her mouth with ice cream, trying to hide the panic in her heart. I thought you usually didn't joke. Healy said seriously, I'm not joking. Shoha, who was eating ice cream, froze for a moment. This date is so important, and I'm late. I'm sorry. Wait for me. I'll be right there. Just then, Shoha suddenly remembered that Cien had gone to buy ferry tickets, so she got up to look for him, planning to buy one more ticket. Unexpectedly, as she passed a narrow alley, a pair of hands suddenly grabbed Shoha. Shoha had no time to react before she was dragged into the alley. Taking advantage of the man's moment of carelessness, she threw him hard to the ground, smashing a deep pit into it. Shoha panted heavily and thought, "What's going on? Who is this? Something's wrong." An ordinary person's fingernails couldn't possibly be this sharp. Could he be? A terrifying possibility flashed through Shoha's mind. At that moment, the man she had knocked down rose to his feet in a bizarre way. He bared his fangs and strode toward Shoha. It really was a vampire. Shoha was stunned by what she saw. As the vampire drew closer and closer, was Shoha really about to be eaten by a vampire just like this? This time, Shoha got treated like a princess. The only unfortunate part was that the one carrying her wasn't Healy. Just now, when the vampire rushed at Shoha, Cien suddenly appeared and slammed the vampire against the wall. He anxiously asked Shoha if she was hurt. Just then, the vampire spotted an opening in Cien's defense, broke free from his restraint, and pinned Cien to the ground. At that critical moment, Shoha forgot her fear, clenched her fists, and charged straight at the vampire. Unexpectedly, the vampire dodged Shoha's attack and lunged toward her. Just then, Ian appeared and sent the vampire flying dozens of feet with a single punch. Meanwhile, Zakanoa had scooped Shoha up into his arms. Shoha stared blankly at the scene before her. "A Princess Carrie. Sorry. I was in too much of a rush just now. It's fine. Maybe I was a princess in my past life." As they spoke, the two landed safely. "Are you hurt?" Ian turned and asked about Shoha's condition as well. "I'm Yufine. Thanks to Zakanoa for saving me." Ian looked at the vampire before him and couldn't help being startled. These creatures clearly shouldn't be able to move before sunset, yet one had appeared here. The whole thing felt strange. Then the vampire spoke. "Hand that girl over now." Everyone was shocked to hear that. Could it be that this thing was targeting Shoha? Suddenly, Ian seemed to sense something. A dense swarm of vampires charged toward them. "Zakanoa, take Shoha and get out of here. Run toward a crowded place." Zakanoa grabbed Shoha, leaped several times, and broke out of the vampire's encirclement. Elsewhere, Gino caught a vampire and tried to force out who was controlling them behind scenes. Unfortunately, these were only low-level vampires with no reason or intelligence. They couldn't communicate. After dealing with the cannon fodder, Soren's anger was obvious. "Cien, you were with her. How could something like this still happen? I went alone to buy tickets, and when I came back, Shoha was gone." Faced with Soren's accusation, Cien lowered his head. Who could have expected that thing to appear here at this hour? Healy's face darkened as he said, "The important thing is this wasn't a chance encounter. Shoha has been targeted, and her life is in danger at any moment. So how would Healy and the others protect Shoha? What exactly had Shoha seen that made her act so flustered? Just now, after Zakanoa brought Shoha to safety, his driving was so fast that Shoha got motion sick. She was leaning against a lamppost, trying to ease her headache. Seeing how awful she looked, Zakanoa panicked. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't think of that. Want me to carry you on my back?" Shoha looked pale. "I'm Yufine. I just need to catch my breath." "Thank you, Zakanoa." Zakanoa froze when he heard that. "For what happened last time, and for today too. Thank you for helping me every time." Zakanoa shyly lowered his head then. "How did you all know about this today? And how did you know exactly where I was?" Before she could finish, Shoha spotted a familiar figure behind Zakanoa. That familiar blonde hair and face made Shoha freeze. It was Chris. But hadn't Chris died when they were children? Shoha ran while calling out, "Chris." At that moment, Healy contacted her through telepathy. While she was answering him, she nearly bumped into the little werewolf, Kan, who happily greeted her. Shiwa, you're at Night Plaza today too? Did you come alone?" While they were talking, Shoha looked back. Chris had already disappeared. Zakanoa suddenly stepped in front of her. "Shoha came with me. What do you want? Just the two of you? What's it to you?" At that moment, the little werewolves from Yuching Academy ran into the group from Desealer Academy. Neither side liked the other, and as they argued, Cien invited Shoha to a birthday party the week after next. Shoha happily agreed, and also invited the little werewolves to come along. That night, while resting, Shoha suddenly dreamed about Chris. But Chris looked as if he didn't know her at all. What exactly was going on? What had Shoha dreamed that left her face covered in tears? It turned out that in her dream, Shoha saw Chris. She kept chasing after him, calling his name over and over. But strangely, Chris seemed not to know her. He was unusually cold. Shoha grew desperate and kept reminding him of things from their childhood. "We used to be such good friends. We played together every day. You even said you'd believe me. You told me that. And you even let me bite your neck once. At that, Chris finally reacted to Shoha's last words. Of course I remember. I missed you so much. Shoha suddenly jolted awake from the dream. It was a dream? Such a vivid dream, right? It had to be a dream. Chris couldn't really be there. I know this was all just a dream. Even so, Shoha went to the beach where Chris had appeared in her dream. But strangely, although it was a full moon, the sky was especially dark, without a trace of moonlight. Suddenly, a wolf's howl rang out, making Shoha jump. The wolves noticed Shoha too, and she couldn't help tensing up. Shoha, what are you doing here at this hour? A voice came from behind her. It was Kansas looking at him. Shoha noticed he seemed different from before. He had actually grown fangs, and Ken kept staring at her. Only then did Shoha realize, I'm wearing my pajamas. I came out in such a hurry. It's understandable. I do that a lot too. But anyway, what are you doing here, Shoha? I just want to see the sea at night. Ken looked at her in confusion. You came all the way here alone, just to see the ocean? And it's this dark. I thought there would be a full moon tonight, but it turned out to be a lunar eclipse. Looking at Shoha, Ken explained what a lunar eclipse was. And today is a special day too. Shoha was startled to hear that. So what exactly was this special day? And could it have anything to do with Shoha? Just what had Shoha said to Hee Lee that dealt him such a heavy blow? It turned out that Shoha had dreamed about Chris and found that the setting in her dream matched the beach, so she ran there in the middle of the night. Unexpectedly, she ran into the little werewolf. Ken was a little worried about her safety, so he suggested escorting her home. Hearing that Ken wanted to walk her home, Shoha relaxed a little. Actually, I'm a little scared. Scared of vampires, and scared of wild dogs. Hearing that, Ken's expression turned awkward. When I came over just now, I saw a bunch of huge wild dogs. Calling them wolves wouldn't be an exaggeration. They aren't real wolves, but if they attack people, that would be bad. Hearing Shoha say that, Ken instantly became nervous. No, that it wouldn't hurt people, especially wolves. Shoha looked puzzled. What did that mean? Ken guiltily scratched his cheek. Actually, wolves are pretty nice animals. That's right, wolves are cool. Really? You really think so? Shoha, do you like wolves? Milimetrów I da. But only the ones on TV. Real wolves are too scary. In the blink of an eye, a new day began. While looking for books in a library, Shoha heard someone calling her name. It was Hee Lee. Hee Lee looked at Shoha with a gentle expression. Borrowing books? And you? I'm returning one. I've finished this book. Really? Then what's it about? This book is mainly about ancient myths passed down through the ages, and some things about vampires and werewolves. Vampires and werewolves? Shoha looked at Hee Lee in surprise. Because those two are famous for being natural enemies, they're often mentioned together. Shoha suddenly looked enlightened. Werewolves turn into wolves when the full moon rises, right? That's right. Then what happens during a lunar eclipse? That, I'm not entirely sure, but it's said that a werewolf will fall in love with the first woman he sees during a lunar eclipse, and love only that one person for the rest of his life. But I saw a lunar eclipse not long ago. Where did you see it? So Shoha told Hee Lee that during the lunar eclipse, she had seen Ken. Hearing Shoha's words, Hee Lee finally understood. Because of one moment of carelessness, his family's precious crystal had almost been stolen. Annoyance appeared on his face. So then, Shoha, what kind of story would unfold between Shoha, vampires, and werewolves? Shoha, sitting alone on the bed, looked so heartbreaking. Just now, Shoha and Hee Lee's group had been talking about werewolves and vampires, when Shoha suddenly lost her temper at everyone, causing them to part on bad terms. Sitting on the bed now, Shoha heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, it was actually Hee Lee. He said gently, Shoha, do you have a moment? Yeah, I. About earlier. I'm sorry. It was such a small matter, and I made it into this. Hee Lee comforted her. It's okay. I know how much you hate vampires. Weren't you mistaken for a vampire before, and put through a lot because of it? I completely understand. Thank you, Hee Lee. But actually, there's a more important reason. So Shoha slowly began telling Hee Lee about her childhood. When she was little, Chris was her only friend and the only one who believed she wasn't a vampire. But one day, her best friend was killed by a vampire. After hearing Shoha's story, Hee Lee said gently, Shoha, do you want to bite my neck? The moment Shoha heard that, her face turned red. Flustered, she said, what are you talking about? No, it's not because I hate you that I can't. Back then, Chris and I were both children. But now we're grown up, so... Anyway, right? That's not really appropriate. But so what? Hearing Hee Lee say that, Shoha was stunned. She stared blankly at him. Go ahead and bite me. No way. I'd be embarrassed. But I believe in you too. That's real. Looking at Hee Lee's serious expression, Shoha asked. Then Healy, can you bite my neck? See? You be embarrassed too. It was as if Shoha had discovered a whole new world. After calming down, Shoha asked, Healy, did you come to see me for something? Healy took out an invitation. Only then did Shoha realize, right? You all have a birthday coming up, don't you? I hope you can come. Of course. But whose birthday is it? All of ours. Because none of us know our birth dates. Then this day is the day we escaped from the orphanage. So why did the young Lee and the others have to flee the orphanage? And why had Soren always hated humans? Poor little Soren was actually treated as a scapegoat to clear suspicion and even nearly burned alive. What exactly had happened? After parting with Shoha at the library, everyone learned just how much Shoha hated vampires, and their moods couldn't help sinking. The one who showed it most clearly was Sien. Looking at his wronged little expression, he looked just like an aggrieved young bride. So Gino comforted Sien. Shoha didn't do it on purpose. If she found out who we really are, she'd definitely be disappointed in us. That's why I said from the start not to get too close to her. In the end, we only have ourselves anyway. Sien put on a love-struck expression, but I want to hang out with Shoha. At that moment, Zakanoa voiced what everyone was wondering. Why does Shoha hate vampires so much? Who would like vampires? Umanzu biosli eta vampiras. But we've never done anything to hurt people. What use is it if only we know that? To humans, all vampires are the same. Just because we're exceptions, does that make a difference? That's true. It's impossible for Shoha to trust us unconditionally, unless we kill every other vampire. At that, Sien made a shocking proposal. Then there's no choice. We'll tell Shoha that Soren is the vampire and clear ourselves of suspicion. Soren, we will never forget your sacrifice. You'll live forever in our hearts. The moment Sien said that, Soren exploded on cue. Noah, were you just gathering firewood? Gino, why are you lighting a fire? While Soren and Sien were arguing furiously, Ian said in a dead serious tone, stop joking around. Let's keep that as plan B for now. Soren was instantly dumbfounded. For now, let's try not to expose our identities. Right, and try not to use our powers either. Then Gino slowly said, I think even if Shoha finds out we're vampires, she probably still wouldn't tell anyone. At Gino's words, Soren's face darkened to the extreme. How do you know? After what happened back then, you still dare to trust humans. It turned out that when they were little, after escaping from the orphanage, a little girl took them in. She gave them a warehouse as a temporary shelter and told them not to worry, saying they could trust her. But when the little girl opened the door again later, she saw them feeding. Only then did she realize that Lee and the others were vampires. So she told the adults, who came to hunt them down. They fled in a panic, but unexpectedly ran into the matron from the orphanage, and their escape plan failed. After that, they gradually stopped trusting humans. Among them, Soren hated humans the most. Soren said seriously, the only ones we can trust are ourselves. In the next episode, Shoha attends everyone's birthday party. Has anyone ever seen a birthday gift for vampires? Like a cross, holy water, or garlic. Time flew by, and soon it was the day of Lee and the others' birthday party. Seeing the house in front of her, Shoha couldn't help exclaiming, so cool. Lee and Sien were also warmly welcoming Shoha at the door. In the middle of their conversation, a voice suddenly came from behind. It was the little werewolf group. Hello, everyone. Shoha, since you all came, everyone will definitely be happy. Kin blushed and said awkwardly, Shoha, have you been well? Long time no see. Before he could finish, Sien cut him off. We only invited you out of politeness. Do you people really have no sense at all? Just as expected of you. Tahi refused to back down. Weren't you afraid if we didn't come? You'd be too happy? If you're that busy, why even have the party? Seeing the two arguing more and more fiercely, Shoha couldn't help saying, everyone, let's go inside first. Inside, everyone was chatting and laughing, enjoying themselves. Then Kin slowly moved closer to Shoha. I missed you, Shoha. I'm happy to see you again, too. Hearing Shoha's words, Sien became unhappy at once and gritted his teeth. What? This guy's been texting Shoha? That shameless jerk actually dared to message Shoha? Shoha took out her phone and showed everyone. Look, isn't it cute? He sends me lots of adorable animal pictures every day. Can send them to me. He says he likes animals, just like I do. At that, Sien jumped out and said he doesn't like animals at all. Before he could finish, Gino clapped a hand over his mouth. But most of them are wolves. Shoha, do you like wolves too? Milimetruf ido. But my favorite is still cats. Then hamsters, rabbits, squirrels, seals, deer. Hearing Shoha's words, Kin looked utterly devastated and was mercilessly mocked by Ian and Sien. At that moment, Shoha suddenly remembered that she still hadn't given everyone their gift. So she took out the anti-vampire set she had prepared. The moment everyone saw the gift, it was like they'd been struck by lightning. They stared blankly at Shoha. Gino took Shoha's gift and said very happily, "Thank you, Shoha. We'll make good use of it." Seeing the embarrassed Healy group, how could the little werewolves let such a perfect chance to mock them pass? Shoha was so thoughtful. "This gift is great." Watching the little werewolves mock them wildly, Sien angrily said, "Where are your gifts? If you came empty-handed, then get lost." The others all took out the gifts they had prepared, but they were a bit too unique. Stones, greeting cards. The most outrageous of all was Can's gift. He actually gave them dust, and he still seemed to think that was a pity. Truly worthy rivals. Their gifts were all so distinctive. Just then, Shoha noticed there was still another gift in Can's hand and couldn't help asking what it was. "This gift is for you, Shoha. Why are you giving me a gift?" Can stammered for a long while without being able to say it, so he simply told Shoha to open it. It turned out to be a photo showing 7 little wolf pups. "Thank you, Kansas. This is the cutest photo I've ever seen." Ken said excitedly, "Really? I'm glad you like it." Looking at the photo, Shoha murmured, "This wolf kind of looks like you." Good times always pass quickly, and before long it was time to say goodbye. Healy and Shoha said farewell to each other at the door. Shoha asked curiously, "Are you all sleeping here tonight?" "Yeah, and we still need to clean up a bit." "Need help?" "It's okay, no need." Be careful on your way home." At that moment, Kan and the others also invited Shoha. "Shoha, let's go together. Then I'll head off first. See you at school." So Shoha and the others left chatting and laughing. Suddenly, Shoha thought of something. It turned out that the photo frame Kan had given her had been left behind in the house. So Shoha went back alone to get it. When she opened the door and saw the messy house, she couldn't help feeling puzzled. They hadn't even started cleaning up at all. Were they resting? But why was it so quiet? Where had everyone gone? Then Shoha saw a room with the light still on. So she pushed the door open and walked in. The scene before her left Shoha so shocked that she couldn't say a word. It was Lee and the others gnawing on animals. Now the secret that Lee's group were vampires had been exposed to Shoha. Shoha hated vampires so much, and now she had learned that Lee and the others were actually vampires. So what would she do? And how could Lee's group possibly explain it to her? Shoha had actually witnessed Lee and the others feeding, seeing the bloody scene before her. Shoha's whole body went rigid. Out of fear, she slowly backed away. "Wait, Shoha, listen to my explanation," Healy shouted hysterically, looking at Lee's sharp fangs. Shoha immediately turned and ran outside. "Shoha, please, give me a chance to explain. Don't use telepathy on me. It only makes me more afraid." Hearing Shoha's words, Healy stared blankly in the direction she had run. Meanwhile, Shoha ran wildly through the woods, trying to drive away the fear in her heart. Was what I just saw real? Is Healy really a vampire? And Sien too? No, all of them are. So that's why everyone had those powers. It wasn't baseless at all, so that's why they believed me. How is that possible? After Chris, I thought I'd finally met friends who believed in me again. I thought I had finally found friends who share the same secret as me. And it all turned out to be a lie. The more Shoha thought about it, the more wronged she felt, as if she had been betrayed. She sat down on the grass and cried. Then, a rustling sound came from behind her. Shoha turned to look. A figure slowly approached her from the darkness. Who was it? Had Healy chased after her? Shoha looked on the verge of breaking down. "Don't come any closer. The thing I hate most in this world is vampires." But when the dark figure came closer, it wasn't Healy at all. It was a night walker. Meanwhile, back in the villa, Healy turned to the others and said, "I'm going to find Shoha." But then Soren's voice stopped him. "What for? What are you going to say when you find her? Do you think explaining yourself now will do any good? After she already saw us like that?" Everyone froze at Soren's words and looked at him. At that moment, Sien said nervously, "Brother Healy, what do we do now?" "What do you mean, what do we do? The whole school will know by tomorrow. We'll have to start running around and hiding again for sure." Would Shoha really tell people? She said herself that what she hates most in the world is vampires. Do you think she'll pretend nothing happened? We're even in the same school, the same class. But we should still talk to her face to face. That's right, Brother Healy, use telepathy first. If I use telepathy, Shoha might become even more frightened. Then Gino quickly told Zakanoa to pinpoint Shoha's location. Shoha's signal is strong. I can find her right away. Before he could finish, Zakanoa's expression changed. What's going on? There are a lot of vampires around Shoha right now. The moment Healy heard that, he immediately rushed out the door. So could Shoha escape this crisis? Would Healy make it in time? Look, those vampires were snarling at Shoha nonstop, as if they would tear her to pieces the next second. Looking at those hideous vampires, Shoha was too frightened to speak. "Zakanoa, where's Shoha right now?" Healy asked anxiously while running. Zakanoa, to Healy, "Brother, in the direction you're heading." Once he knew Shoha's exact location, Healy sped up and sprinted toward her. Meanwhile, the vampires finally couldn't hold back any longer and suddenly attacked Shoha. She ducked low and dodged the strike. Then she ran for the open. Just as she was about to be caught, Shoha turned and launched a flying kick, sending the vampire that had gotten close flying away. She followed it up with a heavy punch, forcing back another vampire rushing at her. Just as Shoha was about to strike a third vampire, a pair of withered hands suddenly seized her by the throat and pinned her against a tree. Someone save me. Just as the vampire was about to strike at Shoha, she suddenly felt the pressure on her neck loosen. Healy had arrived. Shoha, are you okay? Shoha looked at him in terror and kept retreating. Shoha, I know you must be frightened, but we're not the kind you think we are. Then Healy, aren't you a vampire? Aren't all of you? Healy looked at tearful Shoha and said nothing. Shoha said painfully, please tell me you're not a vampire. Tell me this is all some misunderstanding. Looking at the silent Healy, Shoha understood. Everything she had seen was real. Healy really was a vampire. You said you believed me. Was it because you knew I was like you, not human? Healy hurriedly explained, no, Shoha, it's not like that. If it isn't, then why did you believe me so easily? Faced with Shoha's soul-piercing question, Healy had no idea how to explain. After all, the fact that he and the others were vampires couldn't be changed. While they were talking, a voice came from behind Shoha. She thought it was Kan, but when she turned around, she discovered it was actually Chris. Was it really Chris? You. Before she could finish speaking, Zakanoa suddenly contacted Healy through telepathy. Are you with Shoha right now? Zakanoa, what is it? Right beside Shoha, there's another wavelength the same age as her. Hearing that, Healy looked at Chris in alarm. Elsewhere, a horde of vampires had trapped Kan, the little werewolf, along with Zakanoa and the others, preventing them from advancing even a step. So is the suddenly appearing Chris friend or foe? You bastard, stay away from Shoha. Healy actually started fighting Chris. Just now, while Healy had been explaining things to Shoha, Chris, who should have been dead, appeared before her. Shoha looked at the blonde young man before her with excitement. Really? Is it really Chris? That's right, Shoha. It's me, Chris. Even now, Shoha still could hardly believe it. Chris, who should have died, was now standing alive right in front of her. Chris smiled faintly. Shoha, do you remember? I once told you to bite my neck. Hearing Chris's words, Shoha froze, then threw herself excitedly into his arms. Because those were the words Chris had said to her as a child, Shoha became even more certain that the person before her really was Chris. At that moment, Shoha burst into tears in Chris's embrace. Do you know how much I've missed you? Chris, I've never forgotten you, because you were my only friend. Listening to Shoha and Chris, a sorrowful expression appeared on Healy's face. Chris held the crying Shoha and said slowly, Shoha, I'm sorry I didn't come looking for you all this time. I missed you too. I was just afraid. Afraid you wouldn't believe I was still alive. After all, anyone would have trouble believing that. But Shoha, I hope that at least you would believe me. You have no idea how much I wanted to find you. You have no idea how long I spent searching for you. As he spoke, a sinister expression appeared on Chris's face. The heartbroken Healy also noticed the change in Chris's expression. But Shoha, immersed in the joy of being reunited with Chris, still hadn't realized that danger was quietly approaching. Chris, I believe you. As long as you're alive, that's enough. Hearing Shoha's words, Chris took her hand. Hearing you say that makes me so happy. Shoha, you'll always be my princess. As he spoke, he bared his fangs and prepared to bite Shoha's hand. Sensing the danger, Healy immediately seized Chris by the throat. Seeing Healy suddenly attack, Shoha demanded, what are you doing? Healy glared at Chris with a twisted expression. You bastard. Stay away from Shoha. Faced with the threat, Chris merely smiled faintly and grabbed Healy's hand. You're the one who should get lost. Just as the two were locked in a stalemate, Zakanoa descended from above and punched at Chris. Chris casually waved a hand and sent Zakanoa flying backward. Chris, what exactly are you trying to do? Before Shoha could finish speaking, Chris interrupted her. Shoha, I'm saving you from these vampires. At that moment, Healy and the others all arrived beside Shoha and attacked Chris together. Unexpectedly, even all of them combined were no match for a single move from Chris. They were all sent flying. Looking at the attacking crowd, Chris said flatly, what a disappointment. Your strength amounts to only this? Looking at everyone in confusion, Chris continued, it seems you've remembered nothing. But for me, that's actually a good thing. As he spoke, Noah directly used his ability to restrain Chris. Who are you, and why are you targeting Shoha? Chris looked at them with a sinister gaze. So you really know nothing. At that moment, Kan and the little werewolves also arrived. With all three groups gathered in one place, what kind of battle would break out? Chris had actually abducted Shoha and had even bared his fangs at her. Just now, everyone had attacked Chris. But unexpectedly, a powerful energy erupted from Chris's body and knocked both Healy's group and Kan's group unconscious. At that moment, Healy awoke from unconsciousness. Looking around, he realized Shoha was gone. Healy anxiously shouted her name, trying to find Shoha. Meanwhile, Shoha was in Chris's arms as he dashed wildly through the forest. She struggled nonstop. "Let me go. Why are you doing this?" Chris looked at Shoha with a gentle face. "Didn't I say? I'm protecting you from those vampires. I just want to take you somewhere safe. I was the only friend who believed you, so you should believe me too." As soon as he said that, Healy finally caught up to Shoha and struck at Chris. Just when Healy was about to land a hit, Shoha accidentally activated her power. It directly froze Healy's attacking body in place. Seeing this, Chris smiled darkly. Seizing the opportunity, he struck Healy hard in the chest and sent him flying away. Seeing Healy injured, Shoha shoved Chris away and prepared to go check on him. Unexpectedly, after only a few steps, Chris grabbed her wrist. Chris revealed a terrifying smile. "Have you forgotten whose fault it was that I died?" Only then did Shoha realize that the person in front of her was not Chris at all. Furious, she demanded to know who he really was. Unexpectedly, he put on a crazed expression. "Guess who I am?" Then he opened his mouth wide and lunged to bite Shoha. At that critical instant, Soren arrived in time and blocked the fatal blow for her. Seeing someone dare ruin his plans, Chris directly seized Soren by the throat. Shoha saw Soren about to die on the spot, so she rushed up to save him. But the blonde man casually waved his hand and slapped Shoha aside. Seeing Shoha hurt, Soren's eyes turned red. Then, in a burst of blinding light, Soren transformed into a majestic giant wolf. With a single swipe of its paw, the giant wolf smashed the blonde man to the ground. Then it opened its huge jaws and bit toward Chris's neck. But even transformed, Soren still couldn't withstand a single blow from the blonde man. Just as the blonde man was about to follow up and finish Soren off, Kan and the little werewolves arrived in time. The blonde man cursed under his breath and began gathering power to attack the little werewolves. At that critical moment, Shoha ignored her own safety and interrupted the blonde man's ultimate move. Seeing his attack interrupted, the blonde man glared murderously at Shoha. "I didn't want to treat you this way, but if you interfere with me, then even if I have to knock you out, I'll still take you away." As he spoke, he attacked Shoha. Just as the blow was about to land, Healy suddenly pulled Shoha into his arms and took the hit for her. Seeing the blonde man's terrifying strength, Kan and the others understood that the man before them was definitely no ordinary vampire. So in a flash of light, the little werewolves all transformed together. Roaring, they charged at the blonde man. With a thunderous crash, a powerful shockwave erupted. Meanwhile, Healy shielded Shoha tightly beneath him, not letting her suffer even the slightest harm. "Shoha, are you okay?" Gravely injured, Healy looked at her with a face full of concern. Tearful and helpless, Shoha looked at Healy. The Chris I knew wasn't that kind of vampire. Hearing Shoha's words, Healy's expression dimmed. "I am Sore, Shuhe. I am that kind of existence. Even if you hate me for the rest of your life, can you let me take you and run for now? I want to get you somewhere safe." Seeing Shoha crying so hard she was a mess of tears, Healy couldn't help nodding. Meanwhile, the blonde man gave a sweeping wave of his arm and knocked the little werewolves off his body. Just as the blonde man was catching his breath, Zakanoa and the others arrived in time. The blonde man gathered power in both hands, preparing to attack them. Only then did he realize that Noah's power had restrained him. The group immediately rushed him, intending to send the blonde man straight to the grave. Seeing everyone charge at him, the blonde man cursed under his breath, then vanished in a burst of light. Elsewhere, under the moonlight, Healy and Shoha sat together in a tree as if talking quietly. Having just escaped danger, the two gazed at each other with deep feeling. They both wished time could stop in this moment. At that moment, Healy asked with concern whether Shoha was hurt, and Shoha lowered her head shyly. "I'm Fine. It's all thanks to you, Healy. What about you? Were you hurt just now?" Hearing Shoha's answer, Healy gave a self-mocking smile. "I'm Fine. I won't die from something like this anyway." Shoha looked at Healy in surprise, then lowered her head and apologized to him. After hearing Shoha's apology, Healy slowly opened up and explained everything. It turned out that after Healy and the others escaped from the orphanage, they hid their identities from everyone, especially from Shoha. More than being discovered by others, he was even more afraid that Shoha would be disappointed in them. In truth, Shoha had never expected that Healy and all his companions were vampires. Showa was also curious. Since Lee and the others had grown up in the same orphanage, how had they become vampires? Had they all been bitten by vampires when they were children? Lee's expression turned pained. I don't know why I'm a vampire. I don't know why I became one. I don't know anything. All I know is that from some point on, we became vampires and grew up imprisoned in a place called the Bow Hospital in name. We don't know whether we were bitten by vampires, whether we were born as vampires, or whether someone turned us into vampires. There's not a single thing we can be sure of, and we're different from other vampires. Sunlight, crosses, even holy water hardly affect us. Seeing Lee's desolate expression, Shoha hurriedly tried to comfort him. Then how do you know you're vampires? Even if everyone has special powers, maybe you're not vampires, just like me. Because we want to drink blood. At that moment, Lee cut Shoha off. Tears streamed down his face as he stared painfully at his blood-stained hands. Because we instinctively crave blood. We don't want to eat anything but blood. And even if we eat nothing at all, we won't die. But only one day a year, on our birthdays, do we drink blood. And we only drink the blood of animals that are already dead. We've never attacked people, and we've never drunk human blood. That's the truth. Believe me. And if you can't, that's okay. I'll work hard until you can. Looking at the pain on Lee's face, Showa couldn't help asking, why did you come save me? Weren't you afraid I'd blame you? Or tell everyone at school your secret? Lee looked at Shoha firmly. Because I felt I had to save you. I felt I absolutely had come. From the moment I first saw you, I felt as if something was telling me that this was my destiny, who I am, what kind of life I am supposed to live, the reason I exist. All of it is for the sake of protecting you. And I will live for that purpose as well. At that moment, the two slowly met each other's eyes. Then, Lee, do you want to bite me? Hearing Shoa's words, a blush instantly spread across Lee's face, and he quickly turned his head aside. Showa tugged gently at Lee's clothes and then looked at him firmly. I believe you. Under the witness of the brilliant starlight, Lee slowly pressed his lips to Shoa's neck. Beneath the stars, he gently leaned in close, his lips brushing against Shoa's shoulder as though enduring an enormous temptation. The air was thick with ambiguity. Blushing deeply, Shoha turned her head aside. After a long while, Lee slowly lifted his head. Shoha, are you all right? I'm fine. Your lips only touched me for a second. But what about you, Lee? You look exhausted. Did you really want to drink my blood that badly? Lee lowered his head. If I said I felt no impulse at all, I'd be lying. But more than that, I'm afraid of losing your trust. I don't want to disappoint you. Hearing that, Shoha was stunned. She had never expected Lee to care so much about her feelings. She remembered that whenever she was in danger, Lee was always the first to appear at her side, even though learning his identity had made her feel betrayed. When her life was truly in danger, Lee had still disregarded his own safety and risked everything to protect her. How could Showa possibly hate someone like that? No, not just him. She couldn't hate any of them. Thinking that, Shoha looked seriously at the person before her. Now we already know everything about each other. I hope for now on we can become even closer. Just then, Zakanoa's voice sounded in Lee's mind. Through telepathic communication with Zakanoa, the two learned that the blonde man had disappeared. Just as Zakanoa and the others were about to go look for Lee and Shoha, Zakanoa's voice sounded again in their minds. Shoha probably doesn't want us going over there, right? Having let go of the knot in her heart, Shoha looked happily at Lee. Tell them we're coming to find them. When the two appeared before the others, the first ones to pounce on them were the little werewolves. Shoha, are you okay? Thanks for coming to save me. You're not hurt, are you? That simple sentence nearly made can break down on the spot. He puffed up and said, don't worry about us. We're tough. Then looking awkward, he added, Shoha, you saw it back there too. We're werewolves. We'd always hidden our identities from everyone before, but especially from you. We just couldn't bring ourselves to say it. At this moment, Kan's expression was exactly the same as Lee's when he had confessed earlier. Shoha slowly walked up to them. Whether you're werewolves or vampires, I still want to thank all of you. You accepted the real me and became my friends. You've always protected me. So this time, can you give me the chance to do the same? Let's become even better friends from now on. After this incident, both sides learned each other's secrets, and the friendship between them deepened even further. The Moonball League arc is about to begin. Doesn't a vampire in sportswear have its own unique charm? By now, some time had passed since Shoha's encounter with the blonde man. Everyone was on the sports field preparing for the upcoming Moonball League. Zakanoa threw himself into the play, and the ball flew straight through the center of the ring. With a sharp whistle, the ball was in. Shoha arrived at the field just then and cheerfully greeted everyone while they rested. Everyone was delighted to see Shoha. Sien practically wanted to stick himself to her like a little charm. At that moment, Lee's voice came from behind her. Thanks for coming to cheer for us. For some reason, whenever Shoha saw Lee's sunny smile, her face would inexplicably turn red, and even her words became hesitant. I hope you all win. Just then, Soren's voice broke the slightly ambiguous atmosphere. It's dangerous to stay here. Don't come any closer. Sure enough, Soren was still the same little tsundere. Even when he was worried about Shoha, he had to phrase it in such a unique way. Shoha smiled faintly and walked over to Soren. Are you worried about me? Afraid I'll get hurt? Caught out, Soren immediately denied it 10 times over. I am not. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't make things up. A full triple denial. Seeing how flustered he was, Shoha put away her smile. Soren, after practice is over, can we talk for a bit? How could Soren possibly refuse the little princess's request? Soon night fell, not wanting to make Shoha wait too long. Tsundere Soren didn't even change out of his clothes, though Shoha ended up teasing him about them. After a round of laughter and playfulness, Shoha explained why she had come. It turned out she wanted to apologize to Soren and thank him. That night, Soren had exposed the fact that he could turn into a werewolf, something no one else had known, all for Shoha's sake. That made her feel terribly sorry. At first, Chris had wanted to take her away. Soren was also confused. Who exactly was that blonde man? Why did he want to take Shoha? As for Soren's question, Shoha didn't know either why Chris wanted to take her away. Seeing how dejected she was, Soren couldn't help comforting her. Maybe he just looked like your childhood friend. Maybe he wasn't really him. But he knew a childhood secret that only we knew. I've never told anyone else. Hearing Shoha's answer, Soren seemed to grasp onto something, his expression growing tense. You've really never told anyone? Shoha continued, well, I did tell Healy once, but other than that, I really never told anyone. At that point, Shoha suddenly remembered that some time ago, she had dreamed of Chris. In that dream, she had told Chris the secret from her childhood. After hearing Shoha's explanation, Soren looked grave. In that dream, Shoha, can you be sure it was really a dream? Hearing Soren's words, Shoha froze. She recalled the conversation she'd had with Chris when they met as children. He never went out during the day and wandered alone at night. So what exactly had caused Shoha's secret to be discovered by the blonde man, leading to that horrifying incident from before? The more one thought about it, the more chilling it became. While Shoha was worrying about how her secret had leaked, Soren said, no matter when, we'll protect you. Those words slowly soothed Shoha's unease. Thank you, Soren. Both then and now. Seeing Shoha's cute expression, Soren panicked too. All right, hurry up and get some sleep. Watching Shoha walk back into the dormitory, Soren visibly let out a sigh of relief. Then he turned toward several figures in the darkness and said, what are you doing sneaking into someone else's school, especially at this hour? Sure enough, vampires and werewolves were naturally incompatible. They hadn't exchanged more than a few words before both sides were already irritated with each other. Enji hurriedly changed the subject. Isn't there some strange guy targeting Shoha? We were just worried about her, so we came to check. But Soren directly refused Enji. We'll handle it ourselves. Go back to your school. Kan's expression turned unpleasant as he looked at Soren. Why should I trust you? Hasn't Shoha already faced enough danger because of you people? That one sentence from can completely set Soren off. The two were just about to fight. Enji stepped between them and tried to calm him down. If you keep this up, Shoha will hear you. We're all the same kind. Try to get along. Who's the same kind as you? I'm a vampire. Kan, clearly enjoying the chaos, kept pressing. Right. Those guys are vampires too, aren't they? So what exactly have they done? Soren was still trying hard to argue that he was different from those vampires, but Kan's soul-searching question instantly extinguished the furious Soren. After talking things through, the two sides learned about Healy and the other's unknown past. It turned out that since childhood, Healy and the others have been locked away and raised in a place called Shuetian Orphanage. The director monitored their every move day and night. Though it was called an orphanage, it was really no different from a prison. It had taken them great effort to escape that suffocating hell. And the recent murder in Nice hadn't been committed by Healy's group either, because they had never drunk human blood. Seeing Soren so agitated, Enji suddenly remembered that the murdered woman looked very similar to Shoha. So he came up with a bold guess. Maybe those people did it while they were searching for Shoha. Hearing Enji's guess, both of them grew solemn. Kan also remembered that in recent years, members of their own kind had begun disappearing one after another. Maybe those people were behind that too. Even if they didn't know the enemy's exact goal, one thing was certain. Those people would definitely show up again before achieving it. They couldn't let Shoha fall into danger again. Soren scratched his head and said, I agree with you, but this has nothing to do with you. Kan then said seriously, it does have something to do with me. Because I like Shoha, At that moment, a voice suddenly came from Shoha's room, shattering the awkward atmosphere. Obviously, Shoha had heard their conversation, so how it can resolve this embarrassing situation? Faced with the sudden confession, Shoha, hiding behind the door, blushed and didn't know what to do. When she was little, no matter where she went, people treated her like a jinx and disliked her. Even the children in the village refused to play with her. She had always been alone, and after finally making a friend, that friend was killed by a vampire. Now, being confessed to all of a sudden, the flustered Shoha hurriedly apologized. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Then Shoha thought of Kan's identity and of meeting him under the moonstone some time earlier. She remembered Healy once telling her that on the day the moonstone appeared, a werewolf would forever fall in love with the first person he saw. Then Kan's voice came from outside the door, interrupting her thoughts. Everything I just said was from the bottom of my heart. A werewolf only loves one person in his entire life. And for my whole life, I belong only to you. The Moonball League is about to start. I hope when the time comes, you'll come cheer for me. When Shoha didn't answer, Kan couldn't help feeling awkward. Sorry for suddenly telling you all that. Then, I'll be going first. The once overbearing little werewolf now walked away red-faced. That contrast left Soren completely speechless. What the heck was that? Just then, Zakanoa's anxious voice suddenly rang in his mind. Brother Soren, where are you right now? Hurry to our room. Hearing the urgency in Zakanoa's voice, Soren immediately asked what was wrong. What happened? The director of the orphanage where we grew up, Maggie, has come looking for us. The moment Soren thought of the person who had confined him for half his life, he wished he could grow 2 extra legs and run faster. With a bang, the door opened. The director looked at the rushing Soren, then turned to the others. So you're all here. Good. Everyone's assembled. I have something to say. Sien, visibly agitated, immediately rejected the director's proposal. The atmosphere between both sides grew tense at once. So in the face of everyone's hostility, how would Maggie, the director of Shiwetian Orphanage, respond to Healy's group? And what exactly was her purpose in coming here? Let's find out next time. If one day, the person who imprisoned you for half your life suddenly appeared before you and told you they had imprisoned you to protect you, how would you feel? Healy stepped forward and said evenly, "Long time no see, director. I thought after all this time, you'd already given up. I didn't expect you to still be searching for us." The director removed her hat, her expression serious. "Actually, I didn't come for you. I'm looking for her," before she could finish. The furious Soren cut her off. 100 years. We were imprisoned by you for a full 100 years. And now, after another 20 years, you suddenly show up and expect us to believe what you say? The director hurriedly explained it wasn't imprisonment. No, more accurately, I had no choice. I did it to protect you. Hearing that, everyone looked doubtful. Then who exactly wanted to hurt us? The director looked troubled, then slowly revealed the reason. The first ancestor wanted to harm you. In order to keep the first ancestor and the vampires under his command from hurting you, I could only hide you in the House of Snowfield. And those people's ultimate goal is to eliminate all of you. But it was obvious no one was buying the director's explanation. It's all lies. She just wants to trick us back into that place. Seeing how emotional everyone was, the director continued, "Aren't you curious why you're different from other vampires? It's not because you were created or because some experiment altered you into what you are. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Other vampires are only half-finished products made by the first ancestor. That's why they fear sunlight, are aggressive, lose their reason, and become humanoid monsters. But you're different. You are the only vampire nobles who inherited ancient power. The first ancestor sees you as the greatest threat and wants to wipe you out. That's why I hid you away. The first ancestor was the first human to turn himself into a vampire. Then he went around biting people at random and turning them into his subordinates. After that, they used their numerical advantage to attack the ancient kingdom. And now, the only vampire nobles left are you. If I could have, I wanted you to grow up without ever even knowing what vampires were." At that point, Gino voiced everyone's doubt. Then why, after all this time, has the first ancestor never found us? It turned out that during all those years, the ancient power within them had still been sealed, so the first ancestor had never noticed them. But 17 years ago, their seals began to loosen. 17 years ago, hearing that number, Healy remembered something Shoha had once told him. Until just before Shoha was born, vampires had existed only in novels. That was very close to the time low-level vampires began appearing. To confirm his suspicion, Hilly couldn't help asking, did something major happen 17 years ago? The director's expression became extremely solemn. 17 years ago, Her Highness the Princess was reincarnated as a human, so the seal she had set was broken. Then who exactly was the princess the director spoke of? It turned out the first ancestor's ultimate target was the princess, and the princess's identity was beginning to surface. Just as everyone thought the director was trying to win their trust with some non-existent princess so she could manipulate them, Cien bluntly demanded proof. The director replied, Her Highness the Princess is in this school. In fact, the entire campus can feel her wavelength. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. The director had followed the princess's wavelength to find the school. Meeting them here had been entirely accidental. And as Her Highness grows, her wavelength will lengthen accordingly, allowing the first ancestor to pinpoint her location more accurately. The princess's situation will only become more dangerous. Then the director abruptly changed direction and looked straight at Zakanoa. Your senses are sharp. You should already know. If you encountered Her Highness the Princess, you would instinctively feel that your destiny is to exist for the sake of protecting her. That is why, when Her Highness was reincarnated, your ancient powers also began gradually awakening. Meanwhile, the villainous first ancestor, after sensing Shioha's wavelength, slowly recovered his long-sealed power. His ultimate goal is to get Shioha into his hands, because he wants the primordial power within her. And Li and the others are obstacles in the first ancestor's plan. That's why he wants to eliminate them. After hearing the director's explanation, Li couldn't help thinking of the blonde man he had fought some time ago. A bold thought rose in his heart. Could that blonde man be the first ancestor? Thinking of this, Li used his ability to communicate with the others. Although the director's words sounded fantastical, all the doubts they'd had until now seemed to have found answers. And in everyone's mind, the image of the princess was becoming clearer and clearer. The princess was Shioha. To get even more useful information, Zakanoa asked, even if all this bizarre stuff you're saying is true, what exactly do you want us to do? I want to take Her Highness the Princess away, and while I do that, you deal with the first ancestor. You want to take Shioha away? The agitated Cien immediately blurted out the princess's name. But by the time he realized he had misspoken, the director had already learned the reincarnated princess's name. You are instinctively drawn to Her Highness the Princess. Then you're surely certain that she is the princess. Where is Her Highness now? Seeing the unquestionable firmness in the director's attitude, everyone directly stated that there was no way they would let the director take Shioha away, nor would they hand Shioha over based only on the director's word, because they couldn't be sure whether the director wasn't actually someone sent by the first ancestor. After hearing their answer, the director grew anxious. If Her Highness the Princess falls into the first ancestor's hands, this world will become hell. So I must take her away. Just as everyone was arguing endlessly over whether Shioha should leave, Li stepped in front of the director and made his position clear. What you're saying may be true or may be false, but we can't hand Shioha over to you based on a mere 50% possibility. If protecting Shioha is my destiny, then you are also a potential danger. With that, Li yanked at his tie. Until you can prove what you say is true, don't come one step closer to Shioha. If Shioha is threatened even a little, I won't let you off. I'm not the child you remember anymore. And in the final of the Moonball League, as expected, Kan's team and Li's team would meet. So which team would Shioha cheer for? And who would ultimately claim victory? Let's look forward to it. The final of the Moonball League was about to begin, and as usual, Li was waiting to go to class with Shioha. The moment Shioha saw Li, her cheeks instantly flushed red. Ever since the two had opened their hearts to each other in that tree, whenever they were alone together, things always felt a little awkward. So she secretly glanced at Li. Unexpectedly, Li turned his head too. Feeling guilty like a thief caught in the act, Shioha blushed even more and started speaking incoherently. What Shioha hadn't expected even more was that Afterkin invited her. Li also invited her, asking her to come cheer for his team in the Moonball League. That left Shioha conflicted. Both sides were good friends. What was she supposed to do? As the bell rang after class, Shioha had spent the whole day agonizing and still hadn't decided who to cheer for. Wait a moment. A strange voice suddenly came from behind, interrupting Shioha's thoughts. Just as Shioha was about to turn around and see who had called her, Li appeared from behind and smiled at her. Didn't we agree you'd come watch our match? Then let's go together. But it sounded like someone was just calling me. Unexpectedly, Li changed the subject. There's no one over there. You must have misheard. As he said that, he gently pushed Shioha toward the arena. Before leaving, he didn't forget to glance at the director hiding in the shadows. That look seemed to warn the director not to appear beside Shoha again. If you come near Shoha without permission again, you'll regret it. At the arena, amid the cheers of the audience, both teams took the field. Since they were opponents, there was naturally no avoiding a round of trash talk when they met. They mocked each other and made threats. By chance, Sien spotted Shoha in the stands and happily waved to her. Our cheering section is over there. Go cheer for us from that side. Faced with Sien's request, Shoha didn't know what to do or how to answer him. Very quickly, Sien's excited flailing caught Kan's attention. Kan also spotted Shoha in the crowd and secretly swore, "Shoha, I will definitely dedicate this victory to you." Thinking that, Kan adjusted his cap. Several names surfaced in his mind. Mayhan, Ruslin, Camel. We clearly agreed they'd come back. So why hasn't there been any news from them at all? Could something have happened? Just then, the referee's voice pulled Kan back to reality. With a crisp whistle, the ball flew into the air. Two figures leapt high to grab it. The Moon Ball League final had begun. With the referee's loud whistle, the match officially began. Zakanoa got the ball first and immediately passed it to Ian. Seeing that, the little werewolves quickly sent two players to stop Ian's advance. Realizing he couldn't break through their defense, Ian shouted, "Gino." The instant the ball left his hand, Ian was tackled to the ground and had an intimate encounter with the dirt. At the same time, Sien ran over to Gino. "Pass me the ball." Sien had barely had the ball for 2 minutes before Kan drove an elbow into his side. Then he was slammed to the ground, and Inji stole the ball. With the goal right in front of him, Inji immediately passed to Tahi, who was nearest the goal. But accidents often happen in the instant of a pass. Healy intercepted it. He feinted past Tahi, his gaze turning sharp, and put power into both hands. The little werewolves tried to block the ball in midair, but it was already too late. With a heavy thud, the ball went in. Standing in the audience, Shoha saw Healy score and couldn't help feeling happy for him. Amid the cheers of the crowd, the game continued. This time, Healy went for the ball. Unexpectedly, Tahi played dirty and rammed him from behind, knocking Healy out of the air. With the ball in his hands, Tahi looked at the completely undefended goal ahead and couldn't help getting excited. "There's nothing in front of me. This shot is definitely going in." Before he could finish, Zakanoa appeared right in front of him. Looking at Zakanoa, suddenly blocking him, Tahi hesitated over whether he should pass. Then, Kan the Tank suddenly appeared and tackled Zakanoa to the ground yet again. One almost had to wonder whether the little werewolves had some strange love of tackling people. Then again, they were canines, weren't they? By now, Tahi had sprinted under the goal with the ball. Looking at Lee and Soren coming to block him, Tahi cursed under his breath, clicked his tongue, then leapt high before their eyes and hurled the ball with all his strength. The ball flew straight toward the goal under the gaze of all three. With a bang, it went in. The score was tied. After a brief pause, the game resumed. Watching the fierce battle on the field, Shoha couldn't help worrying. Today was the final, but the intensity was on a completely different level from the previous matches. "I just hope nobody gets hurt." As she thought that, a voice suddenly came from beside her. "Hello, may I speak with you?" So what did this cloaked stranger want with Shoha? Would Shoha follow this stranger away? It turned out the cloaked stranger was the director. Shoha was still wondering what this middle-aged woman wanted with her. The director said to Shoha with a serious expression, "After the first half ends, meet me at the exit. This is important. Please come." After saying that, she turned and left without caring whether Shoha agreed or not, leaving Shoha standing there in confusion. Watching the director walk farther and farther away, Shoha was baffled by what she'd said. Back on the field, both sides continued going at each other fiercely. The score had now reached 9-9. In the last 2 minutes of the first half, Healy broke through with the ball and brought the score to 10-9, putting his side temporarily ahead. The little werewolves looked at the score on the big screen, somewhat dissatisfied. "We've only just caught up a little. We still haven't taken the lead. There are still 2 rounds left in the second half. We have to turn this around and win." Meanwhile, Shoha kept glancing toward the exit of the arena. Clearly, she had become curious about what that woman had said just now. The first half had just ended, and she was considering whether she should go see her after all. Just then, Sien interrupted Shoa's thoughts. "Did you see the goal I scored just now?" "I did. It was really cool." After receiving Shoa's praise, Sien got so happy he nearly jumped. But he hadn't been happy for even 2 minutes before Soren poured cold water all over him. "It's just one goal. Do you really need to be that excited? Even though I scored 2 goals, I would never say that myself. Anyway, even if I don't mention it, everyone will know." The moment Sien heard Soren's mocking, he exploded on the spot and started arguing with him. Looking at those 2 clowns, Shoha could only feel helpless. At that moment, Gino, wearing a smile, also greeted Shoha. Shoha, our cheering section is over there. You can go cheer for us from that side. Hearing Gino's words, an awkward expression appeared on Shoha's face. Both sides were her good friends, and her indecisiveness flared up again. Just then, Ken also invited Shoha. Even though we're behind right now, we'll win it back in the second half. So please cheer for me. After hearing Kan's words, Xian's face twisted in anger. He even stopped arguing. Shoha is from our school. Why should she cheer for you? Kan, however, acted as if he hadn't heard a thing. Our cheering section is over there. Go cheer for us from that side. That stirred up a hornet's nest. Both sides began arguing endlessly over who Shoha should cheer for. Then a voice came from behind, startling Shoha. When she turned around, it was Healy. Seeing Healy so close, Shoha's face inexplicably turned red, and even her speech became clumsy. The match isn't over yet. Why did you come up here? Healy leaned close to Shoha's ear and said softly, I have something I want to tell you, so I came up. I'll go back down once the match starts again. Seeing the two of them being so mysterious, what exactly was Healy going to say to Shoha? Could it be a confession? Let's talk over here. Healy pushed the bewildered Shoha aside, bent down near her ear, and softly whispered, cheer for us. That move from Healy left Shoha completely stunned. After all that build-up, that was all he wanted to say? She had built up expectations for nothing. Shoha hadn't expected Healy to say that, and before she could react, Healy had already jumped back onto the field, leaving her standing there in confusion. Watching Healy walk onto the field, Shoha suddenly remembered that she still hadn't gone to see that woman. What should she do? Would that person still be waiting? That person said it was something important. Should I go over there now? While she was thinking this, the second half began with the referee's whistle. This time, Zakanoa narrowly beat Tahi to the ball. Zakanoa immediately passed the ball to Healy in midair. The moment Healy caught it, his eyes suddenly widened. The next second, Ken tackled him to the ground and stole the ball away. Watching Ken sprint off with the ball, Healy felt a surge of frustration. He immediately gave chase and soon caught up to the running Kan, then slammed his head straight into Kan, trying to knock him over. At that critical moment, Ken tightened his grip on the ball. A second before falling, he hurled it with all his strength toward the goal. With a bang, the ball went in. The instant they saw the goal, the little werewolves jumped up in excitement and shouted, Brother Ken, that was amazing. Meanwhile, Ken the little werewolf was heavily slammed to the ground by Healy. The score was now tied at 10-10. After such an intense match, even Healy, a vampire, and Kan, a little werewolf, were panting heavily from exhaustion. Up in the stands, Shoha looked conflicted. Is that person still waiting for me there? So, did Shoha go to see the director after all? And what would the director, ignoring Healy's warning, say to Shoha? Seeing the conflicted look on Shoha's face, all I want to say is, Shoha, don't go. Stay in the arena and honestly watch the handsome guys play. Isn't that better? So what exactly had happened to make the normally calm and confident Healy show such an expression? Rewinding to the second half, under the leadership of each side's captain, the score kept changing and the clashes grew increasingly fierce. From 11-10 to 15-15 and now to 20-20. In the final 10 minutes of the match, both sides realized that the next ball would be the one that decided everything. At the whistle, Healy and Ken both threw everything they had into it. Charging toward the opening throw, the two leapt high, and in the end, Healy secured the first ball by a narrow margin. Then Healy exploded forward with the ball, rushing toward the little werewolf's goal. Chasing close behind, Ken couldn't help cursing. There's no way I'm letting you have the ball, bastard. This shot will be the last one, and time is running out. I have to steal it back. Suddenly, while charging forward with the ball, Healy noticed out of the corner of his eye that Shoha's seat was now empty. Where exactly had Shoha gone? Just as Healy lost focus, Ken, who had been right behind him, tackled the distracted Healy to the ground and snatched the ball away. After getting back up, Healy hurriedly looked again toward where Shoha had been. After confirming that Shoha had truly disappeared, Healy's eyes darkened and lost their light. A terrifying thought rose in his mind. Had Shoha been taken? At the same time, feeling too guilty to ignore it, Shoha went outside the stadium to keep her appointment, intending to hear what the woman had to say and then return. Shoha politely greeted the woman. Sorry, I'm late. You just said you wanted to talk to me. So what did you want to say? The director's expression turned grave. From this moment on, what I say, but before she could finish, she was interrupted by a voice from behind. Just as Maggie was about to turn around to see what was happening, a pair of dagger-like claws lunged at the two of them. Shoha was startled by the sudden appearance of the vampire and struggled desperately. But the vampire covered her mouth and nose. She quickly lost consciousness and was carried away from the stadium. So where exactly was Shoha taken? And what dangers would Lee and the others encounter on the way? After learning that Shioha had disappeared, Lee could no longer focus on the match. On the field, dazed and distracted, he kept staring at Shioha's seat. In contrast, after snatching the ball from Tahi, the little werewolf charged wildly toward the opposing goal. And without Lee, the team's scoring machine, the others could barely stop Kansas. He smashed through their defense and hurled the ball straight at the goal. With a thud, the ball went in. At the same time, the Moonball League came to an end with the referee's whistle. The little werewolf team had won. Faced with this sudden victory, the little werewolves were overjoyed. They gathered together to celebrate the thrill of winning. Meanwhile, Lee's group was shrouded in gloom, panting heavily off to the side. Just then, the hollow-eyed Lee on the field seemed to think of something. He suddenly let out a shout and ran toward the exit. Ignoring Cien and Gino's attempts to stop him, he didn't slow down at all. Kan, who had been celebrating the victory, also turned at Lee's shout and looked toward Shioha's seat. Only then did he realize Shioha was gone. A bad feeling rose in his heart. As Lee ran, he recalled the scene during the match. Shioha had clearly still been in the stands until the second half. But by the end of the game, she had left her seat. What happened? Thinking this over, Lee suddenly remembered the director who had appeared before him earlier. In front of everyone, Maggie had openly declared that she was taking the princess away. Once Lee became certain that Maggie might have taken Shioha, he sped up instinctively. Back inside the stadium, everyone panicked after hearing Shioha was missing. Zakanoa hurriedly gathered everyone to search for her. At that moment, Lee contacted Zakanoa through telepathy and asked him to use his powers to find Shioha. But when Zakanoa activated his ability to search for Shioha, he found that he couldn't locate her at all. Cold sweat instantly broke out on his forehead. Seeing that Zakanoa remained silent for so long, the others came over and asked what was wrong. He said in a dazed voice, "I can't find her. I can't find her. Shioha's wavelength has completely vanished." Everyone was shocked by Zakanoa's answer. How could Shioha's wavelength suddenly become undetectable? What did that mean? Still stunned, Zakanoa slowly explained, "No matter how much I heighten my perception, I can't sense Shioha's wavelength. If a wavelength has weakened to this extent, there are only two possibilities. She has lost consciousness, or she is no longer alive." After hearing Zakanoa's explanation, everyone's expressions turned grave. At this moment, Lee also reached the outside of the stadium. Looking at the pools of blood on the ground, he understood that Shioha had already been attacked. Still clinging to a shred of hope, Lee loudly called out Shioha's name, trying to awaken her consciousness somehow. Just then, the little werewolf group also arrived at the stadium. King grabbed Lee by the shoulders and anxiously asked whether he had found Shioha. But when he saw the blood on the ground, his expression darkened. Then he shouted to his brothers behind him, "It must be those guys from that day who took Shioha. We have to find her immediately. But how are we supposed to know where those guys are?" Enji cut in at that moment. "Maybe we can figure it out. Weren't our brothers already tracking the vampires? I bet they've probably found their location by now. So let's go find our brothers first." Just then, Zakanoa and the others came rushing out of the stadium in a panic, anxiously asking about Shioha's whereabouts. Lee turned and told Zakanoa to search for Maggie's wavelength. But terrifyingly, Maggie's wavelength had also completely disappeared. Just when everyone was at a loss, Lee said to them, "Let's go to the Shuetian orphanage where we grew up." Kan and Lee's group split into two teams to search for Shioha. What dangers awaited them on the road? And could Shioha be rescued safely from the first ancestor's hands? Leaving one thread for now and picking up the other, Lee's group had already arrived at Shuetian orphanage. Looking at the crumbling building before them, they couldn't help sighing. "I never thought we'd come back here, and of our own accord at that. This place should already be abandoned, right? After all, it's been 100 years since we escaped from here. Let's go inside and take a look first." Looking at the bedroom where they had once lived, everyone's feelings were complicated. It was old, but basically exactly the same as before. It didn't look like anyone had lived here since then. Could it really be, just as Maggie said, that this was an orphanage built solely for us? At that moment, Zakanoa interrupted everyone's reflections and suggested they check the director's office. Before long, they arrived at Maggie's room. Looking at the clean and tidy room, it wasn't hard to guess that Maggie had probably been living here all along. Just then, someone suddenly called out, "Look, Maggie's luggage is still here." Seeing Maggie's luggage, everyone fell silent in thought. It seemed Shioha had not been taken away by Maggie. If Maggie had really taken Shioha, she definitely would have taken this luggage with her. Even if Maggie had taken her away, Shoha would have come back here first, then gone elsewhere together to hide. Judging from the current situation, things had not gone according to her plan. At that moment, Zakanoa used his ability again, only to find that he could sense neither Shoha's wavelength nor Maggie's. It seemed that Shoha and Maggie had both been captured by the first ancestor subordinates. Only he could pull off something like this. Hearing this speculation, Healy couldn't help recalling Maggie's words to him. The first ancestor has already set his sights on Her Highness the Princess. The princess is in great danger right now. I will take Her Highness the Princess to a safe place. Use this time to find the first ancestor and get rid of him. Thinking of that, pain spread across Healy's face. Was I the one who put Shoha in danger? Should I have handed Shoha over to Maggie back then? I should have protected her. Suddenly, Zakanoa jolted, as if sensing something. What's going on? Someone's approaching. Hearing that, everyone stared tensely at the door. At that moment, the door began to creak. Suddenly, a pair of sharp claws thrust through the door, and under the tremendous impact, the door finally collapsed. One vampire after another at the entrance let out low growls and slowly advanced toward Healy's group. Seeing that the vampires had come with hostile intent, everyone prepared for battle. A fierce fight was about to break out. Inside Shuichian Orphanage, the place was packed wall to wall with vampires. They snarled as though searching the orphanage for something. At this moment, Healy's group was trapped in Maggie's office by these vampires, with no easy way forward or back. Everyone watched these uninvited guests with grave expressions. Could be they came because they knew we were here? Before the words were even finished, a charging vampire interrupted. Ian clamped a hand directly onto a vampire's head and slammed it into the floor. Meanwhile, Gino's hands burst into blazing flames, and he struck the rushing vampires with brutal force. In the cramped space, everyone fought desperately against the vampires. Suddenly, in the middle of the battle, Zakanoa passed along some very bad news. It turned out the vampires in front of them were only part of it. The entire Shuichian orphanage was crawling with hidden vampires. Healy was startled, so that means their target isn't us. He then grabbed one of the vampires directly. Why did you suddenly appear here? Tell me your objective. The vampire in front of him stammered, I can't. Hearing this, Healy fell into thought. If this orphanage truly existed only for us, then why had Maggie remained here even after we escaped? Could it be that it wasn't that she didn't want to leave, but that she couldn't leave? Realizing this, Healy quickly told Noah, Zakanoa, and Ian to go to the library. That's where the thing these creatures are searching for in Shuichian Orphanage must be. Whatever it is, it absolutely cannot be taken. Meanwhile, in the chaotic library, a vampire was staring blankly at a book in his hands. Could this book be the reason they attacked the orphanage? Elsewhere, in an unknown lair, the first ancestor stroked Shoa's hair and gazed at her affectionately. Just wait a little longer. My subordinates will soon bring the book that can unite us into one. So then, would the first ancestor's conspiracy succeed? And could Healy and the little werewolves crush his scheme? Hurry to the library. That's where the thing those creatures want to find in Shuichian Orphanage is. Whatever it is, it absolutely cannot be taken away. Seeing how anxious Healy looked, Zakanoa, Ian, and Noah hurried toward the library. As for the scattered vampires along the way, the three showed no mercy, taking them down one by one. Before long, they arrived at the library entrance. Inside the library, after hearing the commotion outside, the vampire decisively jumped out the window with the book and escaped, leaving behind only a ransacked library. Only then did the three realize they had come one step too late. Meanwhile, as Healy tightened his grip further, the vampire cried out in pain. Tell me, why did you come here? Was it one of your companions who stole something from the library? At that moment, seeing that Healy couldn't get anything useful out of him, Cien activated his ability. Under Cien's gaze, the vampire quickly confessed his purpose. It turned out the vampires had come to the orphanage to find a book called Moon Altar. As long as they found a book containing information related to the Moon Altar, they only needed to deliver it. After hearing the vampire's words, Healy seemed to catch on to something. Where was the book to be delivered? The hypnotized vampire slowly replied, to a bar in Purantania called Raiken. Cien pressed on, who is holding Shoha at the Raiken bar. Where is Shoha? I don't know. I just follow orders. Suddenly, the vampire coughed violently twice, his eyes widening. His head tilted to one side, and he died. This sudden turn caught Healy's group completely off guard. What happened? How did he suddenly die? Meanwhile, in that distant, unknown lair, the first ancestor clenched his hand tightly in the air. Fool! He should have died much sooner. And he even told them things he shouldn't have. What nuisance. It seemed this vampire's death had everything to do with the first ancestor. Soon, the first ancestor's attention was drawn by the shouts of a werewolf and the director. Dayton, release Her Highness the Princess at once. Dayton, I've already told you. What you're preparing to do now is something that absolutely must not be done. After hearing Maggie's words, the first ancestor froze for a moment, then quickly put on a harmless smile. You said the same thing back then too, didn't you? But look at me now. Look at how powerful I become. I'm much stronger than all of you now, aren't I? In the end, I was the one proven right. The me of today will surpass you all. I will become the progenitor of a new race. So from now on, call me the first ancestor. Don't call me Dayton anymore. Hearing the first ancestor's arrogant declaration, Maggie was grinding her teeth in fury. Your power is still incomplete. You should know that better than anyone. That's exactly why you want to seize complete power for yourself. Seeing how unbearably smug he was, the werewolf and Maggie, both locked in cages, were so furious they wanted nothing more than to tear the man in front of them apart. Maggie, if you had obediently cooperated with me, the princess could have rested peacefully long ago. Back then and now, I will prove to you that I'm the one who is right. In one corner of town, a red-haired man staggered down the road, muttering under his breath, "Damn vampires. Why exactly did they kidnap our kin? What are they trying to do?" We had to tell the others about this immediately. So what exactly was the first ancestor's purpose in capturing werewolves on such a large scale? And could he Lee's group find clues to Shioha at the bar? Meanwhile, at a hotel in Puritania, the little werewolves had gathered together as if discussing something. Ken had his head lowered, full of regret, believing Shioha's disappearance was closely tied to him. Standing to one side, Enji comforted him. Our brothers have been tracking those vampires. Maybe they've already found something by now, but we haven't been able to contact them for a long time. So where do we even start looking? As they were speaking, the door to the room was suddenly pushed open. The one who entered was Mayhan, who had narrowly escaped death. And Mayhan brought them some very bad news. Camille and Russ Lin were captured by vampires. It turned out that the three of them had tracked the vampires to a bar in Puritania called Raiken. But once they went inside, they discovered the place was actually the vampire's nest. After a fierce fight, they thought they had cleaned out all the vampires. But then a creature appeared that was different from the others. The guy was giving off something like black mist. Then the three brothers all lost consciousness. When he finally came to, he found himself in front of a warehouse. Inside, all of those imprisoned were our own kind. Just as we suspected, those vampires are plotting something. They've abducted our kin and taken them somewhere. Although I barely managed to escape, I couldn't find Camille or Russ Lin. Suddenly, Tahi grew agitated. Why? Why are those bastards kidnapping us? I don't know the exact reason, but those vampires seem to be treating us as test subjects. Hearing Mahan's story, all the little werewolves were shocked. Test subjects? What does that even mean? What exactly are they plotting? No matter what, our brothers are in danger. We have to get to Raiken immediately and rescue them. And through this rescue mission, Kansas gradually came to understand his own destiny and his mission. Meanwhile, Lee's group was also about to arrive in Puritania. Faced with such a troublesome enemy, could they defeat him safely? Lee's group had all had the same dream, and each of their faces was streaked with tears. What exactly was going on? It turned out that after obtaining clues about Shioha from the orphanage, the group had boarded a train to search for her. Perhaps due to some unknown power, not long after boarding, Lee and the others fell asleep. In a dream, Lee discovered that Shioha was calling his name over and over. As soon as he heard Shioha's voice, he frantically searched for her in every direction, so anxious that tears nearly spilled from his eyes. At last, he found Shioha at a place that looked like an altar. He immediately rushed over, trying to save her. Unfortunately, an invisible force blocked Lee's way. Helpless, he could only keep pounding from the outside, trying to wake Shioha. At that moment, Shioha responded to him. Moon god, temple, sword. Because Shioha's words were broken and halting, Lee couldn't understand what she meant. So he told her to say it again. Go to the temple and bring the sword to the moon altar. Save me. After Shioha said that, a mysterious force pushed Lee out of the dream. Only Shioha's helpless and frightened expression remained deeply imprinted in his mind. At that moment, Lee jolted awake from the dream. He muttered to himself, it was a dream. Just then, Zakanoa's voice sounded. I just dreamed about Shioha too. Me too. I also dreamed that Shioha was in a strange place. It seemed like a very dark cave. Shioha was lying on something that looked like an altar. Everyone began discussing it all at once. At that moment, the station announcement rang out. Purintania Station has arrived. This stop is Purintania Station. The group was about to face that man shrouded in black mist. So then, would Lee's group be able to find Shioha at the Raiken bar? Is this the place? The bar called Raiken? At this time, Lee's group had already arrived at the bar the vampire mentioned. Their expressions were tense. Everyone, be careful. This area is crawling with low-level vampires. Then, Lee told Zakanoa to search for Shioha's wavelength, but the result was disappointing. Neither Shioha nor Maggie was here. However, there was an extremely powerful wavelength inside the bar. In order to find out where Shioha was, the group went into the bar. Strangely, despite being open, there wasn't a single person inside, and the lights were off. The whole place felt eerie. Just then, Zakanoa activated his power and pointed toward the liquor cabinet. I can sense that guy's wavelength. It's behind the cabinet. They moved the cabinet aside and discovered a staircase leading underground. Before long, Lee's group was stopped by an iron door. With a creak, the door opened. Looking at the completely empty room before them, everyone couldn't help but feel puzzled. Could this be an underground storage room? We can't see a thing. It doesn't feel like simple darkness either. It's more like a hazy fog. Before Zakanoa could finish speaking, there was suddenly a clang, and the iron door slammed shut. Gino hurried over and twisted the handle, only to discover the door had been locked from the outside. Ian stepped forward and said that if this kind of iron door was locked from the outside, then they could just smash the whole thing apart. Unfortunately, before Ian could finish boasting, he suddenly felt all the strength drain from his body. It was as if he had come down with a serious illness, cold sweat covering him. The others were the same, their faces full of pain. A cold laugh suddenly came from the darkness, just as the first ancestor expected. He said, "You come here." Everyone turned toward the voice and saw a figure slowly walking out of the darkness. As Ely looked at this uninvited guest, he couldn't help thinking, who is this guy? He's clearly different from ordinary low-level vampires. Could the black mist here be his doing? The man before them wore a vicious expression. "You're holding out better than I expected." Seeing how weak everyone had become, the man looked even more pleased. "This mist doesn't just make you sleepy. It also drains your strength." Hearing the man's smug words, Healy immediately took a fighting stance. "There isn't even a single window in here. There's no way to avoid this mist. So he lured us down into the basement on purpose." Healy then planned to get everyone outside first. But unfortunately, everyone's condition was terrible. They couldn't muster any strength at all. Even so, they slowly moved toward the iron door. Then it seemed there was something on the other side, violently smashing at it. With a bang, the bent iron door flew past Ian's head. When he saw what was behind the door, Ian's face lit up with surprise. A whole pack of low-level vampires was standing there. Then those low-level vampires opened their gaping mouths and lunged at Ian. Ian was so startled by the sudden attack that he collapsed onto the floor. At that critical moment, Noah used his power to freeze the crazed vampires in place. The vampires kept writhing their bodies, trying to break free of the restraint. "Hurry and get out of the way. I can't hold them much longer." As Noah's power weakened, the low-level vampires burst forward like wild horses breaking loose and instantly pounced on the group. In the next instant, Ian was seized by the throat by a vampire. In such a desperate situation, could everyone fight back from the brink and win? And could Showa hold on until Lee and the others came to rescue her? At a mysterious altar, the first ancestor looked up at the moon in the sky. Then he looked at Shoha and said, "Shoha, the moonlight still isn't enough yet. The full moon is about to arrive. When that time comes, you'll be able to reclaim what you've lost. And in the end, I will possess your power. In the past, you had power and I had love. I hope that in this life, I will have power and you will have love." Meanwhile, because of their carelessness, Lee's group was suffering under the vampire's assault. In front of them were countless low-level vampires, and behind them was that sinister schemer manipulating the black mist, continuously using his power until everyone was utterly exhausted. In this weakened state, Ian had been grabbed by the throat by a vampire and was in mortal danger. Seeing this, Gino's hands burst into flames as he prepared to save Ian. But before he could take more than 2 steps, he was surrounded by vampires. Because the black mist had weakened everyone, their combat strength wasn't even a tenth of what it should have been. By now, Noah couldn't even stand up. All around them were vampires with glowing red eyes. And because there wasn't enough moonlight, Soren couldn't transform into his werewolf form. After fighting this long, even Heeley's consciousness was growing blurrier and blurrier. Just raising a hand felt like a luxury. How could those low-level vampires possibly let such an opportunity pass? One of them stretched out its sharp claws and lunged at Heeley with a growl. Faced with the attack right before him and with no way to respond, Heeley unwillingly closed his eyes as if he had already resigned himself. Just then, Shoa's voice suddenly appeared in his mind. That voice was like a bolt of lightning, yanking Heeley's consciousness out of his exhaustion. In an instant, he cast off his earlier weakness, waved his hand, and directly annihilated the vampire before him with a forbidden art. A mysterious pattern also appeared on the back of Heeley's hand. Similar patterns emerged on everyone else's hands as well. With the blessing of those patterns, everyone quickly escaped danger. Then they stared in astonishment at the mysterious marks on the backs of their hands. Soon, the vampire's low, hoarse voice snapped them out of it. Everyone immediately activated their abilities and rejoined the battle. And when the elusive man in black saw his power had failed, he joined the fight as well. The battle inside the narrow basement escalated further. Far away, Shoa's body also began to emit a faint glow, as if foreshadowing something. With the mysterious pattern's blessing, Heeley's group's combat power surged. Heeley looked at the mark on his hand and fell into thought. Could Shoa's power have awakened? Just as everyone was cutting through the enemies, the man in black could no longer sit still. A savage look appeared on his face. If that's the case, then I'll have to do it myself. The man in black activated his ability and hid himself in pitch black mist. Heeley turned and said to the others, "We need to get rid of the one who uses the mist first. Sakanoa, find that before he could finish." The man in black appeared behind Heeley and struck him with a deadly blow. Heeley collapsed into a pool of blood, his life or death uncertain. After landing that sneak attack, the man in black became even more arrogant. "I'll deal with you one by one." Suddenly, the man in black sensed something behind him. At some point, Cien had already moved behind him. Cien locked both arms tightly around the black-clad man's neck and shouted to the others, "Got him! Over here!" Ian then grabbed the broken iron door and hurled it with all his might in Cien's direction. As the door came closer and closer, the panic on the black-clad man's face deepened. Finally, a split second before the door hit him, he broke free from Cien's restraint and shoved the iron door aside. But before he could even catch his breath, Zakanoa's attack was already upon him. A steel pipe pierced straight through him. At last, under the combined assault of Cien, Ian, and Zakanoa, the black-clad man's life came to an end. The black mist gradually dispersed as well. The vampires that had been attacking everyone moments ago now deflated like burst balloons, collapsing to the ground without moving. Looking at the scene before them, everyone couldn't help but wonder, why did these vampires suddenly fall? Could it be because we killed that guy? It seems so. Those newly mutated vampires created after being bitten by him also died once he died. Just how many people did this bastard ruin? While everyone was discussing the black-clad man, Gino inadvertently noticed the wounded Heeley lying in a pool of blood and rushed over anxiously to check his injuries. Could it be that Heeley was really about to die like this? After the black-clad man was eliminated, the injured Heeley was finally discovered. Seeing the wounds on his body, everyone sucked in a cold breath. The injuries were far too severe. No one knew how long it would take for them to heal. Yet while Heeley lay unconscious in his mind, someone kept calling his name. The one calling for Heeley was Shoha. Shoha's whole body was emitting a faint light, and at the same time, far away, Heeley's body began to shine with dazzling golden light. To everyone's astonishment, Heeley's injuries slowly started healing. Not long after, Heeley woke up, seeing everyone's worried faces. He immediately asked if they were all safe. At that moment, Cien raised his glowing right hand and looked anxiously at Heeley. "Brother Heeley, this pattern suddenly appeared on the back of our hands, and then you regained consciousness." Hearing Cien's words, everyone looked at the mysterious patterns on the backs of their own hands and said, "It's not just that we regained consciousness. Both our bodies and our abilities are stronger than before." Everyone became even more curious about this power. Looking at the mark on the back of his hand, Heeley voiced his guess. "I don't know why, but the appearance of this power should be Shoha helping us. Everyone nodded in agreement. Just then, Hilly suddenly seemed to remember something and quickly asked about the black-clad man's whereabouts. From Ian's answer, he learned that the man had already been killed. At the same time, they had also discovered a strange phenomenon. After the black-clad man was killed, all the other vampires also collapsed. Noah guessed that when a vampire that bit them died, the low-level vampires connected to it died too. After hearing Noah's theory, Hilly sank into thought. When Maggie met everyone, she had once said that the first ancestor had used forbidden methods to become the first human to turn himself into a vampire. Just as he was thinking this, a clattering sound suddenly came from upstairs. After going upstairs, they discovered there was still one fish that had slipped through the net. So Ian immediately slammed the vampire against the wall with great enthusiasm. Where's that guy called the first ancestor? Where did they take Shoha? Faced with Ian's questioning, the vampire stammered, I don't know. I was only responsible for moving the books. Then where were the books you stole from Shuetian orphanage taken? Under Xian's hypnosis, the vampire could only answer honestly. Everything gathered here will be transported to a city called Otto Nor. After getting this new clue, Healy's group hurried without pause toward the city called Otto Nor. Meanwhile, the little werewolves also arrived at the bar, perfectly missing Healy's group. All that remained were lifeless vampires scattered everywhere. Even more shocking to the little werewolves was that the black-clad man who had once wiped out their three-man team was now lying silently on the basement floor, no longer breathing. Only then did Ken realize that Healy had already been here. On the road to rescuing Showa, Healy's group had already gotten ahead of him. Frustration showed on his face. At that moment, Mayhan suggested they go to a nearby shipping warehouse. Many of our kin are being held there. Ruslin and Camille must be there too. So everyone headed for the warehouse by the sea. But once they stepped inside, what they saw left Ken too shocked to speak. The warehouse was packed with imprisoned werewolves. Everyone, hurry and open the iron doors. Get them all out first. As one iron gate after another crashed down, the imprisoned werewolves finally saw daylight again. After confirming that every cage in the warehouse had been opened, Ken realized that neither Ruslin nor Camille was among them. Then a voice said, "Go to Otto Nor. This is only one of the vampires holding sites for werewolves. In the end, we were all going to be loaded onto ships and sent to a place called Otto Nor. So if the people you're looking for aren't here, then they've already been sent to Otto Nor." After hearing the old man's answer, Can's expression turned furious. Those bastards. That's right, they plan to conduct experiments. They want to obtain the special power possessed only by our race. They want the power of werewolves to build a world that belongs only to them. As the old man spoke, anger overflowed on everyone's faces. Suddenly, the old man pointed at Kansas. "Especially you. You're very likely to become their target. Be careful." In the city of Otto Nor, several high school students were walking down a crowded street. They were none other than Healy's group who had followed the clues here. Do you all feel it? Every person we can see right now, and everyone passing by us, is a vampire. Meanwhile, in a room inside the municipal building, a woman dressed in red gazed in a disturbingly fixated way toward Healy's group's location. She muttered to herself, "I didn't expect those brats to find this place. If I kill them, the first ancestor will definitely be pleased." So, as the old man said, why would can become the first ancestor's target? And in a city filled entirely with vampires, could Healy's group find any clue to Shoha? Little Werewolf, Ken was actually a great warrior of Lycaon among the werewolf race. Lycaon refers to descendants of the wolf god, a special bloodline that existed only in ancient times before vanishing. The name of the werewolf clan is also passed down through generations, along with its status and traditions. Can's silver hair, his commanding leadership ability, and a necklace called Silver Branch Fong. These are all characteristics of Lycaon's great warrior. Kansas, hearing the old man's explanation, Ken stood frozen in shock. "How do you know my name?" The old man did not answer. He simply continued slowly, "That's true. At this point, only an old man like me still knows these things. But you must have already felt it yourself, that you are different from the others of your kind, haven't you?" Once again, the old man's words struck a secret Ken did not want mentioned. Whenever the full moon shines down, werewolves are forced into their wolf forms. That is the nature of the werewolf race. But every full moon night, Ken could not transform. Watching his kin transform, Ken slowly began to doubt himself, even believing for a time that he was an incomplete werewolf. Only through the old man's explanation did he understand that the reason he was different from the others was because from birth he bore the destiny of leading the entire race. Only then did Ken understand his mission and responsibility. Meanwhile, in Otto Nor, Sien pointed at the people before him in disbelief. A city this large, and almost every citizen in it is a vampire? How is that possible? But after hearing the exchange between Zakanoa and Healy, he had no choice but to accept it. There isn't a single human wavelength in this city. Ordinary people couldn't possibly survive here. No wonder all the supplies are being transported here. Because no matter what strange things are brought in, they won't be discovered. In other words, this entire city is under the vampire's control. The moment their group entered, those in power here had likely already discovered them. At this, Healy said darkly to the others, "Let's go to City Hall. We need to meet the ruler of this city." In a garden fragrant with flowers and birdsong, a young girl was admiring the beautiful scenery before her. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. "Your Highness, so this is where you are." Hearing the familiar voice, the girl happily turned around. Standing among the flowers, she looked almost like an elf. It really had to be said, clothes make the person. In Shioha's previous life, both her status and her beauty were impeccable, and it was precisely because of that status and her nation-toppling beauty that she became the fuse for everything that followed. "Your Highness, Her Majesty the Queen is looking for you." The one who had come was the previous life counterpart of He Li and the others. "What does Mother want with me?" Shioha asked curiously. She said it was something important. It should be about the wedding. Upon hearing it was about the wedding, Shioha's expression immediately dimmed. "I heard the prince of a neighboring kingdom has proposed to me." At this point, Healy still hadn't noticed the shadow on Shioha's face and casually continued, "I heard that prince is quite an excellent match." But before he could finish, Shioha interrupted him. "But I have no intention of marrying right now, and I want a political marriage even less. It may be arrogant of me to say this given my position, but to make a lifelong vow with someone I know nothing about, and to be unable to be with the one I truly love, is that simply the fate of someone with my status? Marriage ought to be the fruit of love, but now it feels more like an assignment." After listening to Shioha's story, Healy's expression dimmed as well. But because of the difference in their status, he could only bury those feelings deep in his heart. He then comforted Shioha. "Your Highness, I'm sure you'll meet someone wonderful, a prince worthy of someone as outstanding as you." But Shioha grew even more disgusted with political marriage and decided to go find her mother and make things clear. But before she could take more than 2 steps, a wave of dizziness hit her, and she collapsed straight into Healy's arms. "Your Highness, are you all right?" "I'm sorry, Healy. I've been getting dizzy for no reason lately. You've been like this often lately. I'm really worried. I'll go call the royal physician to take a look." Shioha then looked up at Healy and said, "Thank you, Healy. I'm always troubling you." The moment he saw Shioha's beautiful face, Healy instantly blushed. "It's nothing. This is what I should do. Protecting your Highness is my duty." Healy then helped Shioha to her feet, but their intimate little exchange was completely seen by a man in red standing behind them. And the first ancestor's path into darkness was about to begin. What exactly happened between Shioha and the man in red that made her so angry? As it turned out, it had happened just moments earlier. Because of the marriage alliance, Shioha had just come out of her mother's chambers, looking upset. At that moment, the man in red blocked her path and immediately questioned her about the marriage, not caring at all that she was clearly in a foul mood. Without even looking at him, Shioha walked past and said, "I already rejected the marriage proposal formally." To her surprise, the man foolishly assumed the princess had done that for his sake. Shioha had no intention of indulging such an arrogant man. She turned back angrily and stated it outright. What she had done had absolutely nothing to do with him. But what the man said next filled Shioha with alarm. "Actually, I feel the same way as your Highness. I also oppose political marriages based on status." Shioha had not expected the man before her to be so bold. He had actually followed her and eavesdropped on her conversation with Healy. Yet the man looked unconcerned. "I'm simply very sensitive to your Highness's voice, because my whole heart is always chasing after you." Shioha was so enraged by his shameless words that she exploded, no longer caring about his identity. "Chancellor, how dare you say such things?" The man, who had been smiling just a moment ago, suddenly turned dark and grim. "You say, 'How dare I?' Is it because I'm not royalty?" As he spoke, he stepped forward and grabbed Shioha's arm. "So you really do care about status that much?" Shioha immediately slapped him across the face. "It seems you still don't understand why I hate you." Even after being struck, the man showed no sign of reflecting on himself and continued teasing her. "Then what would I have to do to make you mine?" At last, Shioha could endure no more and shouted the man's name. Then she lunged at him as if ready to fight him to the death. Just then, the man who had seemed so arrogant moments before was suddenly seized by He Li, who lifted Dayton by the collar and warned, "If you dare disrespect Her Highness again, I will never let you off." Afterward, He Li threw the man to the ground as if tossing away trash. Dayton watched the two of them walk off together, his gaze dark and venomous as they gradually disappeared from sight. At last, his possessiveness toward Shioha reached its peak, and he turned his hand toward the royal family's forbidden books. Even now, he still did not understand why Shioha despised him so much. In terms of status, he may have been born into a declining noble house, but through his own effort, he had risen to become the chancellor of this nation. And even so, he still could not have her. Then if this entire country became his, would that mean he could finally possess her? I will make you mine no matter what. Even if I have to sacrifice the entire nation, it will be worth it. But for that, I need power, overwhelming power. The more the man thought, the more extreme he became. Just then, the study door opened, interrupting his search. The one who entered was the headmaster. "Dayton, what exactly are you doing here? This is not a place you may come and go freely. These are royal secrets." As he looked at the headmaster, the man's expression darkened even further. So in the end, it really does come down to status. "I've had enough. Dayton, I've heard you're conducting highly suspicious experiments. What exactly are you plotting?" The man slowly rose to his feet. "I only need power, nothing more." Seeing this, the headmaster tried one last time to warn Dayton of the terror of the forbidden books. But in a fit of rage and humiliation, Dayton grabbed him by the throat. Realizing Dayton would not listen at all, the headmaster used the last of his strength to shout for the guards outside. Knowing he could not stand against the guards, Dayton threw the headmaster aside and fled through the window. After seeing Dayton's crazed expression, the headmaster decided to hide all the important documents to cut off Dayton's wicked ambitions. But what he did not realize was that Dayton had already found, in the forbidden books, a way to make himself stronger. Elsewhere, after getting away from Dayton, Showa couldn't help complaining to He Li about the Chancellor's character. He's an extremely capable Chancellor, but lately he's become more and more rude. I know a person's heart can't be completely controlled by reason, but people still need to understand that some things can never come true no matter how badly they want them. After hearing Showa's complaints, He Li's expression also turned desolate. Wasn't he himself just as much a moth flying into the flame? Just then, Shoha, who had still been complaining about the Chancellor a moment earlier, suddenly felt a sharp wave of dizziness. She lost consciousness, and her body fell uncontrollably. Fortunately, He Li reacted quickly and caught Shoha before she hit the ground. Soon, He Li brought Shoha to the physician. After hearing the news, Shoha's mother also came to her bedside, anxiously calling her name. Looking at Shoha lying unconscious, tears began to flow from her eyes. What I feared most has happened after all. It turned out that every member of the royal family was born with the power of Saman. Shoha, in particular, was the royal who possessed the strongest power in history. That was why her body could no longer endure it. As Shoha continued to grow, the power of Saman within her also kept growing stronger. If this continued, Shoa's body would give out and she would die. The only way to save her was with the kingdom's treasure, the blood of Varg, the ancient wolf god. After drinking the ancient wolf god's blood, Shoa's body floated up into the air and radiated dazzling light. The king and the others standing nearby were so shocked by the scene before them that they could not speak. Within Shoha's consciousness, however, she felt an incredible warmth, and someone kept calling out to her. When she slowly opened her eyes, a gigantic wolf's head appeared before her. The giant wolf introduced himself to Shoha. "I am the wolf god, Varg. I will now bestow my power upon you." Shoha slowly drifted toward the wolf god. The moment she touched him, he became a beam of light and entered her body. At the same time, the floating Shoha slowly descended, and she gradually opened her eyes. Shoha's mother hurried to her side, and when she heard Shoha call her mother, the king, who had been tense the entire time, finally relaxed. He pulled the newly awakened Shoha into his arms, tears flowing down his face. He kept murmuring softly, "Thank you. Truly, thank you, Wolf God Varg. Shoha is all right now. Everything is all right." Shoha then told her mother what had happened inside her consciousness. "Mother, I saw the Wolf God. The god gave me power. Dayton happened to overhear those words from outside the door. He stared greedily at the wolf god's blood on the table, clearly plotting something. After using every means possible to obtain Varg's blood, Dayton's body underwent strange changes. First, no matter how much blood he drank, he still felt thirsty. Second, the slightest exposure to sunlight caused his skin to rot. Having turned into a monster, Dayton still had no idea what had gone wrong. He had clearly drunk the same Varg blood as the princess, so why couldn't he become a perfect vampire? Was the ulceration because he had not consumed enough of the wolf god's blood, or because he lacked the power of Saman? Thus transformed into a monster, Dayton led his endless hordes of vampires in an assault on the ancient kingdom. A year later, even Shoa's mother's power was no longer enough to oppose Dayton, and her condition worsened day by day. As she lay dying, she called Shoha to her bedside. "Saren, don't be too sad. You knew this too, didn't you? This is the only way left." The grief-stricken Shoha wanted to say something to change her mother's mind, but her mother interrupted her. "Saren, the power I possess has been sealed within the Tower of the Moon God. You drank Varg's blood, the power of Saman in our line, and the power of the ancient wolf god. Both now belong to you. You have become the first vampire noble to possess both at once. So after I die, your coronation ceremony will be held, and you will inherit all the power I sealed away. Then you will become the strongest being in this kingdom's history. I hope you can use that power to protect this kingdom from Dayton's grasp. With my strength, I can no longer stop Dayton. During this time, we have used your blood to create new vampire nobles. Even with the werewolves' help, we still can't keep up with the rate at which those creatures are multiplying. So hurry to the moon altar and complete the coronation ceremony to claim the sealed power." Just then, the door burst open with a bang, interrupting Shoa's mother. "There's no need to worry. Your Majesty, I will take that power for myself. I will rule this kingdom very well." When they saw who it was, everyone was stunned. The intruder was none other than Dayton, now transformed into a vampire. Dayton stared at Shoha with a sickly look in his eyes. "Princess Saren, I never wanted this. All I wanted was your love, but you wouldn't even spare me a proper glance. So now I can only take everything from you." As Dayton advanced, the headmaster immediately shouted at him and shielded the princess behind him. But Dayton, now a vampire, struck casually and knocked the headmaster unconscious in a single blow. After felling the headmaster, the instigator behind everything quickly turned his hand toward Shoha. Having broken into the kingdom and dealt with the headmaster, Dayton's obsession with Shoha had reached its peak. Looking at Shoha in her panic, Dayton declared with twisted delight that as long as he could destroy Shoha and make her his, then if he could obtain the Queen's seal power at the moon altar, surely he could use the same method to take Shoa's power as well. Just as Dayton was indulging in that fantasy, Healy suddenly flashed behind him and shattered his daydream with a single slash. Dayton, hurt and furious, glared at the person before him. Their eyes met, and the atmosphere grew tense. "Princess, are you all right?" "Dayton, how dare you do something like this?" Before Healy could finish, Dayton launched a sneak attack and tore open a wound across Healy's chest. Seeing Healy injured, Shoha looked at him in panic. Dayton's sinister smile only grew wider. "What were you going to say? That I'm despicable? You should know what I'm like. After all, you also have feelings for the princess. So at the very least, you should understand me, shouldn't you?" Dayton's words exploded in Healy's mind like a bomb. While Healy stood stunned, Dayton raised his claws and charged at him. But before those claws could even touch Healy, they were cut off by a long blade. Dayton, his arms severed, had not expected his attempt to shake Healy mentally to have no effect. Elsewhere, Zakanoa and the others also engaged the unwelcome intruders in battle. But there were simply too many vampires, and they were badly delayed, preventing them from reaching Shoa's room in time. After a hard fight, they finally wiped out the vampires blocking the way and soon arrived at Shoa's chambers. "Your Highness, are you all right?" But after seeing the situation before them, everyone immediately surrounded the wounded Dayton. However, Dayton was never going to submit quietly. Black light burst from his body, and with a thunderous blast, the encirclement was instantly shattered. Everyone was blasted backward and crashed to the ground, their condition unclear. In the end, Healy's group was no match for Dayton. All of them fell heavily wounded. As the victor, Dayton looked down arrogantly at the people lying on the floor and made his declaration of triumph. "A bunch of nuisances. But now, this kingdom and the princess are both mine." Just as Dayton was gloating, Shoha suddenly rushed in front of him. "Dayton, how could you do such a thing? For you, I'd do something even crueler without hesitation. Before Dayton could finish, a flash of cold light cut across the air, and the fallen Healy, having regained consciousness, took advantage of Dayton's inattention and drove a blade straight through his chest. Enraged, Dayton ignored his own injuries, turned around, and moved to finish Healy off. At that critical moment, a white light suddenly filled the room. Within it, Shioha rushed forward and threw herself around Healy. Using her own body, she took the fatal blow in his place. When the light faded, Dayton saw Shioha gravely wounded and on the verge of death, and his mind went completely blank. Healy gathered Shioha into his arms and called her name. Through his desperate efforts, Shioha finally opened her eyes. Healy, every time I fall into danger, you're the one who comes to save me, without even a trace of fear, without even a moment of hesitation. I know now what you've been hiding from me all this time, because I'm the same. So I hope that when we meet again, we can be honest with each other. As Shioha wiped away Healy's tears, her body suddenly shone with a dazzling light. At the same time, mysterious runes appeared on the backs of Healy and the others' hands. After the flash of light passed, all the wounded people who had been lying on the floor vanished. Only Dayton remained alone in the castle. So where exactly had Healy and the others gone? The truth was not long before. Because the situation had been so urgent, the headmaster had told Shioha to hurry to the moon altar and complete the coronation ceremony. But while he was trying to persuade her, Dayton appeared behind them at some unknown moment. Before either of them could react, he raised his sharp claws and struck at the headmaster's back. At that instant, Shioha's body emitted a dazzling light, and with a loud bang, the two of them were suddenly outside the palace. Seeing the injury on the headmaster's back, Shioha could not help worrying. "Magi, are you all right? The wound on your back." But despite Shioha's concern, the headmaster was still worried about her and the safety of the entire kingdom. He told Shioha his injury was not a problem, and that the most urgent matter now was going to the altar to complete the coronation ceremony. After a fierce inner struggle, Shioha grabbed the headmaster by the shoulders and said, "No, I can't do that. During that time, Dayton will kill everyone. I can't let everyone sacrifice themselves because of me alone and then calmly ascend the throne as queen." Seeing how resolute Shioha was, the headmaster tried to say more, but she cut him off. "Magi, I have a request. I want to return to the palace now and divide my power among my knights, and then send them to the distant future. So, Magi, when you reach that future, I hope you'll find them and take care of them. Until I am reborn, I leave them in your hands." Returning to the present, the first ancestor looked at the tearful Shioha and could not help thinking, has her power returned? Has she also regained the memories of the past? At that thought, the first ancestor's expression darkened. "Don't cry, Saren. If remembering the past means you'll hate me again, then I'm the one who truly ought to cry. I even came back to you in the form you like best. But why is it that this time you still chose that man? But it doesn't matter. Even if you don't love me, as long as I love you, that's enough. As long as I kill all those people and seize all your power, that will be enough." Elsewhere, after arriving at City Hall, Healy's group was wondering whether they would even get to see the mayor. Then, with a creak, the door of City Hall opened. "I've been waiting for all of you for quite some time. Please come in." The beauty, standing there in professional attire, had clearly been waiting specifically for them. She continued, "You've come to see the mayor, haven't you? I'm a mayor's secretary. My name is Teresa. Please follow me." As Teresa led the way, Zaka, whose senses were extremely sharp, began to break out in a cold sweat. So he used telepathy to warn everyone that the beautiful secretary before them was not nearly as simple as she appeared. She was in fact a very troublesome vampire. When the group arrived at the mayor's office, the sight of the mayor before them made everyone freeze in astonishment. Teresa looked at Healy's group with amusement. "What? Surprised because the mayor is human? A mayor has to go out and appear in public from time to time, after all. So I found one who was obedient, or rather, I made him obedient." Then Teresa abruptly changed tone. "In other words, I am the true ruler of Autonor." After hearing Teresa's arrogant declaration, the group's anger reached its limit. "You bastard! Where did you take Shioha? Where's that so-called first ancestor? Tell us where Shioha is right now. Did you take her to a place called the Moon Altar?" Looking at the furious crowd, Teresa slowly said, such impatience, "I only called you here because I want to give you a gift." Under Teresa's manipulation, a mysterious entrance slowly opened before everyone's eyes. "Come with me. I have something to show you." So what exactly lay beyond that entrance? And could this mysterious thing be a trap? In order to get more clues about Shioha from Teresa, the group knew full well it might be a trap, but they had no other choice. So they followed Teresa without hesitation into the underground chamber. After entering the subterranean hall, Healy grew curious at the scene before him. What's going on here? Why does it look like a temple? At the same time, Healy suddenly remembered something Shioha had once said to him in a dream. Take the sword from the temple and come to the moon altar to save me. He fell into thought. Could this be the temple Shioha had mentioned? Just then, Teresa interrupted his thoughts. Over here, as the curtain was pulled aside, an icy divine sword appeared before them. Do you know what this is? This is an ancient holy sword. Then Teresa looked at Healy with a teasing smile and continued, Healy, do you remember now? This is the sword you used a very long time ago. Teresa's words struck Healy's mind like a hammer. He stood there blankly, at a complete loss. So I intend to return it to its rightful owner. Since it's your sword, you should take it. Although I'd like to hand it to you myself, we can't touch this sword. Even the slightest contact causes the part that touches it to melt away. After hearing Teresa's words, Soren and the others used telepathy to urge Healy not to touch the sword. This was obviously a trap. If, as Teresa claimed, this sword was so lethal to them, there was no way they would simply hand it over to them. But when he thought of the scene of Shioha begging him for help in that dream, Healy hesitated over whether he should pick up the sword. The situation fell into a deadlock. At that moment, Teresa seemed to see through what they were thinking and slowly said, Surely you're not afraid I've tampered with the sword? That suspicion isn't entirely wrong. But before Teresa could finish, a red light suddenly flared in her eyes, and Healy's body involuntarily strode toward the sword. The moment he touched it, fragments of a previous life flooded into his mind. The pain made Healy let out a tortured scream. After a moment, once he had digested those memories, he could not help feeling shaken by them. Could all of this really have happened to me? Are these my memories from the past? But if they're false, then everything is far too vivid. Seeing Healy in the same state, Zaka, Ian, and the others rushed forward to help him. But before they could even take 2 steps, a strange force seized their bodies and left them unable to move. Seeing that her power had taken effect, Teresa stopped hiding herself and said to the group with a sinister smile, Even if the sword is dangerous, isn't what matters most who its point is aimed at? And that is something I will decide. A sword that can kill my own kind. Now it's your friend's turn. After Teresa finished speaking, Healy, holding the sword, slowly turned around. The blade pointed straight at Zaka, Soren, and the others. Would Healy really be controlled by Teresa and turn his blade against his own friends? They had never seen a woman so vicious, taking pleasure in manipulating others into killing one another. And in the end, Teresa's scheme succeeded. Healy, gripping the longsword, trembled all over, and his body moved uncontrollably toward his teammates. What should they do? If this continued, he would attack everyone without distinguishing friend from foe. No matter what, they cannot strike back. Meanwhile, the others were also immobilized by Teresa's control, like lambs awaiting slaughter. At this critical moment, Zaka Ian finally figured out Teresa's ability. It turned out that Teresa's power was something akin to hypnosis, and now that he roughly understood it, there was a way to deal with this formidable enemy. So Zaka sent a telepathic message to Sean. Understanding Zaka's intentions, Sean decisively activated his power, intending to break Teresa's control over everyone. But unexpectedly, Teresa acted first, controlling Healy and instantly moving him in front of Sean, and with one slash, sent Sean crashing to the ground. Sean gasped for breath in huge, ragged pulls, his life hanging by a thread. Tears filled Healy's eyes as he kept calling Sean's name, his heart full of worry. But as Teresa gave another command, Healy had no choice but to raise the sword in his hand and strike down toward the gravely wounded Sean. At the very last moment, Noah used his ability and blocked Healy's sword. The two sides were locked in a stalemate, unable to gain an inch on each other. As time passed, Noah's face became drenched in sweat. He was clearly on the verge of collapse. Just then, Teresa activated her power once more, and Noah was suddenly seized by the throat by Ian and lifted into the air. Noah's agonized cries echoed through the temple. As Ian's grip tightened more and more, Noah's struggling body gradually stopped moving. Seeing this, Soren and Zaka cried out in alarm. Noah! Ian! But before Soren could finish speaking, a long sword pierced straight through his body. The one holding it was Healy, tears streaming down his face. As the sword was pulled free, Soren's body slowly collapsed backward. Only Healy remained, screaming in anguish. and Teresa, the mastermind behind it all, stood to the side making mocking remarks. Everyone's expressions are so wonderful. It's too wasteful for me alone to enjoy this. Don't worry, I won't let you die so easily. Something this entertaining shouldn't end too quickly. Before Teresa could finish, a streak of fire came rushing straight toward her. In a single exchange, Healy's group had been utterly crushed by Teresa. Desperate to save the others, Gino acted without hesitation and unleashed his power. In an instant, towering flames surged toward Teresa. Teresa was caught slightly off guard by Gino's attack, and her control over the others loosened. Furious, Teresa stared at the fire-wreathed Gino, no longer calm and composed as before. "How dare you resist me?" The moment she finished speaking, Teresa controlled Ian and had him teleport in front of Gino, slam Gino's head into the ground, and knock him unconscious. After freeing herself, Teresa continued spouting sarcastic remarks. "So, what do you think of friends slaughtering one another?" Just as Teresa was still reveling in her triumph, Zaka, who had briefly shaken off the control, seized the opportunity and lunged straight at her. Teresa reacted quickly and immediately strengthened her control. It was a pity Zaka had been only a second away from finishing her off. Zaka could not help cursing inwardly. Damn it, just one more second, just 1 second. Having escaped death once again, Teresa seemed to read the resentment in Zaka's heart and sneered. "What? Not good enough? That was your best chance. You won't get another one." Then she controlled Healy and had him drive the sword through Zaka, dropping him to the floor. Seeing the despair and agony on Healy's face, Teresa grinned. A far more vicious idea had just occurred to her. Now there's only one left, right? The very last one. Go bring me your friend's head. As Teresa's order came down, Hilly gripped the sword hilt with both hands. His legs trembled violently as he fought Teresa's command with sheer willpower alone. His expression was twisted with pain. When Teresa saw that Healy had not obeyed her command, she cursed angrily. "You bastard! How dare you resist me?" As she increased her control over Healy, the two of them remained deadlocked. No one noticed that Zaka, who had fallen moments earlier, slowly opened his eyes and moved his hands ever so slightly. As Teresa's control intensified, Healy's whole body shook and he let out a cry of pain. In the end, Healy still failed to overcome Teresa. A black shadow leaped into the air and charged toward Ian. Could it be that Healy's entire group would all perish at Teresa's hands? Just then, as Healy swung his sword, Shoha's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Healy, no. It was precisely that voice that helped Healy break Teresa's control. The sword stopped just 0.01 millimeters from Ian's neck. Furious beyond measure, Teresa glared at what had happened. "That bastard is still resisting me at the very end." Before she could finish, Zaka landed a fatal strike on her and sent her flying, leaving her fate unknown. Just as Lee's group had been battered half to death by Teresa, the young werewolves also arrived in the city of Auto-Nor. When they saw that the entire city was full of vampires, they were shocked and broke out in cold sweat. Fortunately, the vampires before them showed no interest in these new arrivals. Otherwise, the group might have died in the city already. Kenan suggested that everyone first go find Camille and Russelin. But with the city so vast, no one knew where to begin. At that moment, the sharp-nosed Tahi seemed to catch a scent, and his expression changed instantly. "That smell, could it be them? Wait, everyone, what is it? It's those guys. Their scent is here." Hearing Tahi's words, Ken quickly asked, "Tahi, what did you find?" Tahi continued, "It's Lee and the others. Their scent is still here too." Inji asked in confusion, "That bunch came here too? If we follow the scent, we should be able to find them. Let's go." Before long, the group followed the scent to City Hall. What are those guys doing at City Hall? They're probably here to see the mayor. Since the mayor controls this vampire city, then that means those guys are inside right now. Before he could finish, a woman's voice interrupted them. "Everyone, don't just stand there. Come in first. I'll lead the way." The same setup, the same tone. Would the young werewolves end up following in Lee's group's footsteps too? Just then, the woman leading the way suddenly stopped. Her whole body trembled involuntarily. A voice suddenly sounded in her mind, her sister's. Trina then looked at the group with ill intent. "My sister is calling me." "Well, nothing can be done. I was planning to take you somewhere more interesting, but it seems I'll have to get rid of you right here." One after another, the doors behind the woman flew open, and vampires emerged from them, bearing their fangs at the group. Battle was about to erupt. After a bitter fight, the young werewolves finally wiped out all the low-level vampires before them and panted heavily. Ken could not help cursing under his breath. Damn these bastards. At that moment, Mayhan suddenly realized that Trina, the woman who had led the way earlier, had vanished at some point. So everyone decided to go after her. But before they could take 2 steps, Tahi called them to a halt. Even though the smell over there is faint, our brother's scent is coming from that direction. Will they manage to find the 2 who were taken by the first ancestor? Let's wait and see. Just as Zaka was gravely injured and Teresa was trying to press the attack further, her own injuries slowed her down, and her killing blow failed to land. As a result, Teresa regained her bearings and directly restrained him with her power, causing the chance to be lost. At that moment, Shoa's voice reached Zaka's mind. As he watched the wounds on his body slowly begin to heal, Zaka couldn't help thinking, is Shoa helping us? But everyone is too badly hurt. And when Teresa saw this scene from the side, she grew anxious as well. Is this the princess's power? No, I need to settle this quickly. With that thought, Teresa called for reinforcements with one hand while using her power to block Zaka's attacks with the other. The 2 sides remained locked in stalemate. Seeing how difficult it was for Teresa to keep using her power, Zaka thought to himself, just as I expected. After being injured, her control has obviously weakened. She was already pushing herself just to control all 7 of us at once. That's why she only immobilized 6 of us and had Healy attack us alone. When Ian slit his throat, Healy stopped moving. So more complicated motions can only be applied to one person at a time. And now she can't even properly control one person anymore. If my guess is right, with that thought, Zaka sent a telepathic message to the others. That woman definitely has no spare power to control the wounded. Just then, Sean suddenly staggered to his feet. When Teresa saw that, panic flashed across her face. Instinctively, she activated her power to control Sean. But what Teresa had not expected was that this was exactly what Zaka had been hoping for. Seeing that the time had come, Zaka immediately sent a message to Healy. Brother Healy, now, go. Healy rushed straight in front of Teresa, and the sword swept toward her in one smooth motion. With a clang, the blade was blocked by a woman. It was Trina. Looking at her injured sister, Trina's face darkened as she said, "You dared to hurt my sister. I won't forgive any of you." Seeing reinforcements had arrived, Teresa immediately used her power to restrain Healy and the other 2, while Trina swung her blade at them. The 3 of them were in mortal danger. At that critical instant, a giant wolf suddenly charged in. The newcomer was the young werewolf Kansas. In his giant wolf form, planted himself in front of Healy and the other 2, then pounced and knocked Trina to the ground. He opened his jaws wide and bit toward Trina. Seeing this, Teresa hurriedly used her power to restrain him. And Trina, having reacted, did not hesitate. She drove her blade straight into his body, then kicked Kin away. That scene happened to be witnessed by Tahi and Nazak, who had just arrived. Nazak immediately transformed into a giant wolf and charged straight at Trina. So could the young werewolves and Healy's group join forces to defeat these 2 sisters? As the saying goes, impulsiveness is the devil. Sure enough, the moment Nazak saw Kin injured, he lost all reason. He ignored even Zaka's warnings, transformed on the spot, and rushed headlong at Trina. But before he could even reach the sisters, Teresa controlled him and froze him where he stood. Trina seized the chance and slashed down with her blade. And just like that, Nazak, the first one to rush in, was taken out. When Healy saw the young werewolf's furious emotions, he immediately shouted to stop them. Don't come any closer. That wounded woman has the ability to manipulate others. Although she's injured and can't easily control all of us at once, if you get within a certain distance, you'll become targets. Just then, Teresa suggested to her sister that she first kill off the unconscious wounded. After receiving her sister's suggestion, Trina instantly rushed toward the unconscious Soren. Just as Soren was about to die on the spot, Dongji arrived in time and pulled him to safety. He then told the young werewolves, move the other wounded outside first. The group never imagined that in this lifetime, they would actually end up saving vampires. But even so, they couldn't just stand by and watch them die. When Trina saw the young werewolves rescuing people, she flew into a rage. Who said you could leave? Just as she was about to go after them, her sister's voice rang out. Trina, let them go. However, after moving the wounded outside, everyone realized that the young werewolf Kin had been left behind inside the temple. Just as they were about to go back and bring Kin out, the temple doors suddenly slammed shut, trapping everyone outside. And Teresa, the mastermind behind it all, was inside the temple, weakly mocking those who remained. Haha, what a bunch of idiots. Now then, let's send the ones left here straight to hell first. With that, Teresa activated her power and controlled those who remained. Healy and Zaka immediately felt something was wrong. Now that there are fewer people, her control has grown stronger again. As he thought that, Teresa shouted at her sister now, "Trina, attack!" At her sister's command, Trina charged at the immobilized group. With one slash, Ian went down. Right after that, Zaka and Sean fell one after another. Far away, Shoha sensed that her friends were being gravely wounded one by one, and painful tears streamed down her face. At that moment, Trina swung the large blade in her hand and looked excitedly at the final person. A delighted laugh escaped her lips. "Come on, just one left now, right? I'll make your death quick." With that, she rushed straight toward Healy. Her heavy blade was just about to come down on his neck. Just then, something suddenly happened. Shoha, who was thousands of miles away, suddenly appeared behind Trina and wrapped both arms tightly around her. Then, with a sharp snap, the two of them vanished. When they appeared again, Trina's long blade was already swinging toward her own sister, while Shoha had vanished without a trace. When she saw her sister's head flying through the air, Trina froze completely. She muttered, "Sister, no, it was sister who bit me. If sister dies." Before Trina could finish speaking, she collapsed onto her sister's body. Just like that, both of them turned to ash and scattered before Healy's eyes. Only then did the rescued Healy come back to her senses. It had clearly been Shoha who saved her just now. She hurriedly searched all through the temple for any sign of Shoha, but unfortunately found nothing. At that moment, Healy could not help but wonder if she had seen wrong. Very quickly, she rejected that thought herself. Impossible. Shoha definitely appeared here and helped us. Just then, the gravely wounded can began to emit a dazzling golden light, drawing everyone's attention. Thus, the Teresa sisters' dungeon was finally cleared. Just Trina and Teresa alone had nearly wiped out Healy's entire group. So on the road ahead, as they searched for Shoha, what dangers would both groups encounter? Dayton looked at Shoha, who had disappeared and then reappeared, and fell into thought. What is going on? He vanished suddenly, then appeared again. That is clearly the mist form ability possessed by the princess. Could it be that as his memories of the past awaken, his power is awakening as well? When I met him in the square before, he seemed not to know he had such an ability. But for now, he still shouldn't be able to use it properly. And on top of that, he has given almost all of his power to those people. There is no way he can push his own abilities to the limit. Thinking of this, Dayton unconsciously glanced at the weeping Shoha. So there's nothing to worry about. In the end, all of it will become my power. Meanwhile, the light on the badly wounded can slowly faded. He returned to human form, and his eyes gradually opened. When Nazak and Dungji saw Ken wake up, they were overjoyed, almost running over to give him a bear hug. After waking, Ken looked at his healed wound in confusion. I was clearly stabbed by a blade. How did I recover all of a sudden? Since he could not figure it out, no matter how much he thought, Ken simply stopped dwelling on it and turned to ask his companions whether anyone had been injured in the battle. After hearing that none of his companions were hurt, Ken finally began to relax. Then he looked around. So what happened to those vampire sisters? They're dead. Healy's voice came from behind him. After the older sister died, the younger one also dissipated. Hearing this, Ken was stunned. What? You did it? Then, with a somewhat downcast expression, Healy replied, "No. The one who dealt with them was Shoha." When Ken heard that it was actually Shoha who defeated the vampire sisters, he looked utterly disbelieving. He sprang straight up from the ground, looked all around, and stammered incoherently, "Shoha is here? Shoha was brought here too? Where is Shoha now?" As for Shoha's whereabouts, even Healy did not sound very certain. Probably. Shoha isn't here now. What are you talking about? You're saying he's not here now, but he still killed those people? Even though I still don't fully understand the situation either. Shoha suddenly appeared, then suddenly disappeared again. After hearing Healy's explanation, everyone in the room was completely bewildered. They stared at Healy in confusion. Suddenly appeared, then suddenly disappeared? What exactly did that mean? Healy continued explaining. It probably has something to do with Shoha's ability. It's a bit like teleportation, but not exactly. He doesn't seem to go somewhere with his full physical body, but he can apparently turn into mist and move instantly to another place. So in the end, he probably returned to where he originally was. After hearing Healy's explanation, Soren stood there in a daze. He remembered that Shoha had once told him at school that sometimes he had dreams that felt unbelievably real, so real that he could still remember the sensations and even the taste. Back then, Soren had wondered whether those were really dreams at all. At that moment, Mayhan voiced his question. Why do you think that? What makes you so certain? Because this may sound unbelievable to all of you, but when I picked up this sword, all my memories of the past came back. That includes who I am, who Shioha is, what happened in the past, and how we were sent here. Hearing Lee's explanation, everyone stared in shock. What? Memories of the past? That's right. According to the memories I recovered, Shioha was once the princess of an ancient kingdom, and we were the knights sworn to protect Shioha. But a man named Dayton threatened the kingdom, so we were transported to the future. Shioha has only now finally been reincarnated. Dayton? Could that be the guy we fought in the forest earlier? That's right. That person was Dayton. And not only that, Dayton has been watching Shioha this entire time. That's why he abducted Shioha. In short, in the memories of the past, Shioha possessed a special power. And the power he possesses is the greatest and most unique power in the history of the kingdom. Shioha's appearance and disappearance just now is exactly like the ability he once possessed in the past. Hearing Lee's astonishing explanation, the young werewolves developed new doubts. Should they really believe any of this? Lee seemed to notice their hesitation and continued, whether you believe it or not doesn't matter. We're going to save Shioha either way. As soon as Ken heard they were going to save Shioha, he perked up immediately and said the young werewolves felt the same. But their biggest problem now was that they had no idea where Shioha actually was. Then Lee told everyone the place where Shioha was being held, the moon altar. But even knowing where Shioha was imprisoned, not knowing how to get there became another problem. Ian then directly seized the puppet mayor by force and interrogated him about the moon altar's location. It turned out the moon altar was in the central district of Shibwanor. Ian immediately called on everyone to head there when a voice suddenly interrupted him. Wait. One last question. The speaker was the young werewolf strategist, Dungji. Is the place where the werewolves are imprisoned here too? Hand over the key right now. For the sake of his life, the mayor could only obey Dungji. At last, in a dungeon cell, they found the two they had longed to rescue, Camel and Rustlin. The brothers were reunited, and Nazak rushed up to give them a huge bear hug. At this point, the young werewolf brothers were finally all together. So, would the two groups be able to rescue Shioha smoothly? And what kind of adventure awaited them on the road to the central district of Shibwanor? After so many hardships, the young werewolves had finally found Camel and Rustlin in the municipal center. As the brothers reunited, happy smiles spread across everyone's faces. At that moment, a voice came from behind Kansas. It was Lee. We're about to head for the moon altar. What are you planning to do? We're going to, of course. We're going to save Shioha, and we're going to avenge our own people. After hearing Kan's answer, Lee invited him to join them, intending to team up and tackle the moon altar together. But after hearing Lee's invitation, Ken froze on the spot. He had not expected Lee to invite him at all. The atmosphere instantly became awkward. Fortunately, Dungji stepped in for Ken in time and defused the situation. Unexpectedly, Camel was not having it and immediately started lashing out at Lee. Go with you? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? We're going to save our own people from you vampires. Our kind was kidnapped here because of you vampires. Lee could not help feeling a little helpless in the face of Camel's hostility. But Soren was not the sort to indulge anyone, and the two sides soon started arguing. In the end, Soren got angry, turned around, and called his companions to leave at once. A perfectly good invitation, ended with both sides parting on bad terms. Dongji and Nazak even bickered like grade schoolers over which side should leave first. But when the two of them noisily opened the door, they were instantly stunned by the scene before them. The once bustling streets had fallen silent. Piles of vampire corpses lay scattered on the ground, while the two were still wondering what exactly had happened. Zaka came running over to them, panting, and explained because the pair of vampire sisters we fought died. The lesser vampires they bit also lost their lives. But when Nazak saw this hellish scene, cold sweat broke out on him too. So many people had actually all been bitten by just those two. Lee took over. That's right. So only by destroying the first ancestor will they all disappear, because that guy is the root of everything. After what happened at the Lycan bar, and then this incident at City Hall, Zaka could not help but wonder those sisters just now, and that guy at Lycan Bar with the strange powers. Could people with abilities like that be first-generation vampires, personally bitten by the first ancestor? Judging from the current situation, that should be correct. Just look at how many vampires died, along with those few after they were killed. Then, from the side, seeing that Healy knew far more than he did, Can asked his own question. Then why is the first ancestor capturing werewolves? What kind of experiment is he trying to do? When Healy heard Can's question, her expression turned grave. According to the memories I just recovered, the first ancestor, that is, Daden, once drank the blood of the ancient wolf god Varg. That's why he possesses such power. But he does not have divine power, and he only drank a tiny amount of Varg's blood, so he is still not complete. At this point, King grew even more puzzled. So he kidnapped our people because he wants to drink werewolf blood? More accurately, he wants to drink the blood of a certain specific being. At that moment, Ruslan shared the information he had gathered over this period. The first ancestor and his people have been searching for a special werewolf. The moment he heard this, Kin shuddered all over. He suddenly remembered the warning from the elder of his people back in Otto Nor, especially you. You will become their target. You must be careful. Meanwhile, after seeing the conditions required to obtain the power, Daden got so angry that he threw the book in his hand aside. At that moment, Daden's body also began to undergo a strange change. Again, it's because of bloodline again. After hearing Daden's anguished words, the dean glared at him with a face full of hatred. Do you really think it's because of bloodline? Let me tell you, it's because of worthiness. It is not that one can inherit the power because one has royal blood. Rather, the royal line continued because it was recognized as worthy to inherit that power. The power inherited by the royal family is the result of being acknowledged. And someone like you, who harms others for selfish reasons and treats subordinates as tools, can never obtain that power. Looking at the dean, who was mocking him, Daden suddenly smiled wickedly. In an instant, he appeared beside the dean. Right? I just remembered. You carry the princess's blood too, don't you? It seemed the dean was in grave danger. Really? Why provoke that madman? Now she had dragged herself into it as well. After Healy finished sharing the information with the young werewolves, both groups set out separately on the road to the moon altar. Looking at the vampires coming and going along the streets, Healy and Kin both reminded their respective companions to be careful of the lesser vampires. Though many had already died, even more were still alive. Before leaving the city, no one could afford to let their guard down. But before Kin could even finish speaking, a nearby vampire suddenly bared its fangs and lunged straight at him. Fortunately, Camel acted in time and neutralized the danger for Can. But before Camel could react, the vampires in the street began attacking everyone like mad. Just then, a streak of fire came roaring over and blocked the vampires in front of Camel. It was Lee and the others. Seeing the young werewolves in danger, they all unleashed their abilities and joined the fight. Camel, stunned, looked at everything before him in disbelief. What is going on? Why would those people save me? As he was thinking that, a vampire suddenly attacked the distracted Camel. Ruslan immediately pulled Camel aside. Ian then rushed over and dropped the vampire with a single crushing punch. Then Ian turned back to the two of them and shouted, "Stop standing there. Get to safety." Coming back to his senses, Camel still tried to be stubborn. "Who asked you to save me?" But before he could finish, another vampire sprang out of nowhere and bit straight into Camel's shoulder. There came a sharp crunch. The sudden attack left Camel's mind completely blank, and he froze in place. Only when he came to did, he realized that the crunching sound had actually come from Ian's arm. Enduring the pain, Ian gritted his teeth and looked at Camel. Then he said, "You can't afford to be bitten, can you? It doesn't matter as much for us." But Camel, who hated vampires intensely, showed not the slightest intention of thanking Ian. Instead, he trampled that kindness underfoot. "That's only because you people were in league with them to begin with. Do you think I'd be bitten by something like that? We don't need you interfering." With that, he dragged Ruslan away in a hurry. Faced with someone whose attitude flipped faster than turning a page, Ian was too angry to speak. Meanwhile, Can and Dungji quickly beat back the vampires around them. But there were simply too many vampires. The two of them were left panting from exhaustion. Damn it, this never ends. There's no point in continuing to fight these things. No matter what, we have to get out of this city as fast as possible. Even if we want to. Before he could finish speaking, a flash of white light came sweeping in, and the vampires before them were instantly cut down by Healy. "I'll clear the way. Everyone follow behind me." When they saw who it was, both of them were stunned. Then Kin reacted and quickly called everyone to follow behind Healy. So Healy took the lead with sword in hand, while the others followed closely behind. Suddenly, a chaotic commotion sounded out. Noah looked toward it and saw that Camel had failed to keep up with the main group and was now surrounded by layers of vampires. His life was in immediate danger. So could Camel, this ungrateful little brat, get out of this crisis? Let us wait and see. Looking at the mass of vampires around him, even stubborn Camel felt deep despair. Just when he thought this was where he would die, a voice suddenly sounded by his ear. No. Noah immediately used his ability, forcibly splitting apart the attacking vampires and opening an escape path for Camel. Get out here, quickly! Seeing that Camel was still frozen, Noah shouted another warning. Move! But just as Noah was warning him, a vampire's attack came silently from the side. Fortunately, Rustlin noticed in time and pulled Noah out of danger. At the same time, he gathered strength in his right hand and smashed the vampire away with a single punch. By contrast, the terrified Camel stood there without moving, like an oversized all-you-can-eat wolf meat buffet. At that moment, Zaka, who had come to support them, could not stand it anymore. He grabbed Camel and bolted, leaving only Camel's howls trailing behind them. Seeing that Camel had escaped danger, Rustlin turned to Noah. Let's go too. But the tide of vampires was never going to let them off so easily. They all shrieked and charged at the group. Just then, the running Ian suddenly heard a beeping sound. Then Sean's voice came from inside a vehicle. Move. A large truck shot past Ian and barreled straight toward the vampires behind them. Sean's excited voice floated out from inside the vehicle. If you don't want to die, get out of the way. At that moment, Gino stared in alarm at the speeding truck. Sean, do you even have a driver's license? Caught up in his excitement, Sean flatly answered no. But that did not mean Sean's driving skills were bad. Sean spun the vehicle in a drifting turn and cleanly blocked the pursuing vampires. Then, after jumping out, he hurriedly called for support. Brother Gino, Brother Ian, ignite it and throw it. After hearing Sean, the two immediately used their abilities. Once Gino lit the wooden club, Ian grabbed the torch and hurled it hard toward the tanker truck. The burning torch streaked through the air and slammed into the oil tanker in an instant. With a thunderous boom, the tanker exploded. Looking at the blazing flames, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. At least they no longer had to worry about being chased. Is everyone all right? Yeah, we're okay over here. Just then, another explosion rang out. As Soren was speaking, he suddenly felt the sky darken above him. A huge boulder came crashing down straight toward him. Because it happened so suddenly, Soren was completely caught off guard and froze in place. There came a sickening crack, and blood sprayed like arrows. The giant rock still fell with unstoppable force. But what Soren had not expected was that Camel had shoved him out of the way, while his own leg was crushed beneath the boulder. Only then did the others react and rush over to help them. As the boulder was shifted, the heart-rending pain quickly spread through Camel's entire body. With everyone's help, Camel was successfully pulled out. Meanwhile, Soren continued staring at Camel in disbelief, as though he had countless questions but did not know how to ask them. At that moment, the injured Camel, supported by the others, spoke first. Hey, are you one of our people? That single question left Soren completely flustered, to the point that even his speech faltered. Who says I'm one of your people? You transformed into wolf form just now, and you're still saying you're not one of us? What does that have to do with you? I even saved you just now. Camel really should not have said that, because the moment he did, Soren grew even angrier. We're the ones who should be saying that. And who asked you to save me? Camel, who was already doubting his whole life, knew he was in the wrong, so he could only glare viciously at Soren as if that alone would make him feel better. But at that moment, Camel's injured leg suddenly emitted a dazzling light. In only an instant, his injured leg was restored to normal. There was no need to think hard to know this had to be Showa secretly helping them. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Dayton was in the dungeon, clutching the Dean and feeding on her greedily. Very soon, the Dean stopped struggling and lay in the cell, pale and bloodless. Dayton, now fully fed, wiped his mouth and looked down at her from above. He said, "Since you still have some use, I won't kill you. But I can't let you speak carelessly. Endure the discomfort. When that moment arrives, I'll let you go." Then Dayton looked again at Shoha lying on the altar. He could not help thinking to himself, there isn't much time left now. The princess's power is growing stronger and stronger, but most of that power is being transferred to those people. If this continues, the longer I drag this out, the harder those people will be to deal with. I have to hurry and get rid of them all. Only then will the princess's power return to me. I've already drunk the Dean's blood, and now what I need is that person's blood. Meanwhile, the young werewolf Can, who had narrowly escaped death, had no idea at all that he was about to become the first ancestor's next prey. And after seeing his wounds heal in an instant, Camel was also full of disbelief. Could this be the power of that girl called Shioha? After hearing Kan's firm answer, Camel continued, "But I've never even met her. How could she?" Healy's voice reached their ears then, answering the young werewolf's doubts. Because Shioha is the princess of the ancient kingdom. In that kingdom, all races live together in harmony. You werewolves were no exception. In other words, to Shioha, all of us, including you werewolves, are the people of her kingdom. That's why Shioha helped us. As expected, after hearing Healy's words, Camel immediately went into full argument mode and started firing back at her. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I believe such absurd drivel? How could we possibly have ever lived in the same country as you vampires? Take back such disgusting words at once. But Healy paid no mind to Camel's furious outburst and only replied calmly, "I'm just telling you the truth. Whether you believe it or not is your choice. But you must be able to feel it too, that Shioha has the power to control us and that we instinctively want to protect her." Then the contrarian immediately snapped back again. "What would you know? I've never even met this person called Shioha. Once you meet her, you'll understand what I mean. In any case, since you don't want to, I won't ask you to come with us. We'll meet again at the moon altar. And thank you for saving Soren." With that, Healy and her group turned and left. On the road, Sean, walking up front, could not help complaining. "The moon altar is way too far. We actually have to walk all the way there? This is exhausting." Hearing Sean complain, Ian declared that this distance was nothing and that they would be at the moon altar soon enough. Seeing Ian so full of energy, Sean leapt straight onto Ian's back and said helplessly that he was too tired and needed someone to share the burden. Obviously, Ian was the best choice for that role. But before they had taken more than 2 steps, Ian, disgusted, threw Sean off onto the ground. At that moment, Jakai looked back with some concern. "Come to think of it, they'll be all right, won't they?" Sean climbed up from the ground and brushed the dirt off himself. With a look of disdain, he said, "Who exactly should be worrying about whom? Aren't we the ones who are their main targets?" "Exactly." A voice suddenly came from behind Sean. Before Sean could even react, a vampire behind him had already locked an arm around his throat. Just as Ian was about to rush in to save Sean, another vampire suddenly appeared at Ian's side. With a heavy slam, Ian was smashed to the ground. Seeing this, Gino hurriedly used his ability to try to save Ian. But the flame had only just appeared before someone extinguished it. The one controlling that water was the vampire standing before Gino. Noah was not doing any better either. His ability was only half activated before a glowing man covered in golden light blocked his path. Even Zaka's proud speed was effortlessly surpassed by a goggle-wearing vampire, who then gave Zaka a brutal lightning-fast combo. Soren, facing a great enemy, also had his path blocked by a monster covered in thick hair. The monster claimed it was a vampire, but because it had drunk too much werewolf blood, it had turned into this. Just then, Healy also found someone blocking her path. An old man slowly drew his sword and stared at Healy with a dark expression. "Do you know how I felt when a wet behind-the-ears brat stole the position of guard knight from me?" A great battle was unavoidable. They had only just escaped one desperate chase, and now they had run straight into powerful enemies. What was frightening was that these enemies seemed to perfectly counter Healy and the others. So how exactly would everyone deal with these formidable foes? In the forest, Healy and the old man faced each other, neither making the first move. Healy held her sword in both hands and coldly stared at the old man blocking her path. Then she said, "I'm sorry. When I was little, I respected you greatly. I want to become a knight like you." After hearing Healy's words, the venomous look on the old man's face only deepened. "And a brat like you dared take my place?" Because that was Her Majesty the Queen's decision. A foolish decision, appointing a yellow-haired child like you. Before the old man could finish, Healy cut him off. But I think it was a wise decision, because the standard was not who was stronger, but who was more trustworthy. With that, Healy raised her sword and charged at the old man. "That's right. In terms of raw strength, you could never defeat me." The old man also refused to yield and rushed straight at Healy. One white and one red sword light flew all around them. Then their swords crashed together. Both pushed with all the strength in their bodies against the other. With a loud clang, the old man's sword shattered. Healy seized the opportunity and pressed forward, saying, "That was true in the past. Back then, I couldn't beat you. But the moment you chose to stand with Dayton, I swore I would never lose to you again." Then she slashed him across the body. Grievously wounded, the old man struggled to raise his head and looked at the young person who had struck him down. Very well. It seems the queen's judgment was right. You really do possess unusual potential. Deep down, I always knew it. I knew that one day you would surpass me. You can never understand the miserable feeling of having my position stolen by you. From now on, you will only become more and more upright, while you will also become stronger and stronger. I know this myself very well. It is a humiliation I cannot deny. That is why I swore loyalty to Dayton, because Dayton said he could make me stronger. As he spoke, a red glow rose from the old man's body, and the broken sword fragments appeared in his hand once more. When the red light faded, the old man no longer looked as he had before, but had turned into a young man. The two then launched into a new round of savage combat. The sounds of blades clashing rang out continuously around them. Healy could not help cursing inwardly. Damn it, even with a broken sword, he's still this strong. But the rejuvenated former old man wore a sinister smile on his face. He drew a dagger from behind him and, taking advantage of Healy's momentary distraction, slashed straight for her throat. Blood instantly flowed from Healy's neck. Yet the man did not stop there and immediately drove the dagger toward her again. Healy reacted in time and caught the dagger with her bare hand. Then, before the man's shocked eyes, she crushed the blade to pieces. Looking at the dagger shattered to fragments in his hand, the man completely lost his composure. Impossible. Unfortunately for him, Healy had no intention of explaining anything. She simply kicked him high into the air and then ended him with a single slash. As he hit the ground, the battle came to a close. The old man was dead. So what about everyone else's battles? Could they defeat their own formidable enemies? Healy's battle with the old man had come to an end, but what about the others? Sean, who had suddenly been hoisted into midair, let out a cry of pain. By contrast, his enemy looked thoroughly delighted and kept making mocking remarks. Your screams are so cute. It's almost a pity that I won't get to hear them again in the future. Meanwhile, Ian was getting completely overpowered as well. But while this big fool was still boasting to himself, Ian drove a punch straight into his chin. After taking the hit, the brute only sneered, saying Ian's punch was not hard enough, more like a sickly weakling's. Then he smashed another punch into Ian's face. Soaked through with water, Gino now found himself unable to release his power properly. What had once been roaring flames had now dwindled into sparks. Seeing that his ability had failed, Gino decided to fight the blue-haired woman up close. But his intentions were seen through by the blue-haired woman opposite him, who activated her ability in advance and trapped the charging Gino inside a pillar of water, unable to move. Noah's opponent was rather interesting. His whole body radiated blinding golden light, and as if that were not enough, he even wore sunglasses. Yet this man was actually drinking tea right in front of Noah. At the same time, Noah's ability also lost its proper effect against the little golden man. The light was too bright, and all the shadows were cast in the opposite direction. Noah could not use his power, and simply could not get close to him. Seeing Noah struggle to resist his ability, the little golden man helpfully suggested that Noah should just give up resisting. Golden light lit up in his hands, and then he rushed straight in front of Noah, waving his glowing hands before Noah's eyes. The blinding light forced Noah to shut his eyes. Then the little golden man landed a solid blow right in Noah's stomach. Zaka had it even worse. The speed he had always been so proud of failed him badly against this speed freak. The speed freak kept showing off his footwork before Zaka's eyes, and from time to time even taunted him. In the end, he punched Zaka out of the air. As for Soren, his battle was far bloodier. Blood flew everywhere, and every punch landed with brutal force. But the only one bleeding was Soren. Meanwhile, the humanoid beast kept provoking him, saying Soren in human form was nowhere near enough to challenge him, and urging him to transform completely into wolf form. How could Soren endure such provocation? In a fury, he transformed into a werewolf. In that state, he used all his strength and lunged at the beast man with jaws wide open. Unfortunately, the beast man's arms were too long. With one hand, he blocked Soren's attack and then effortlessly slammed him to the ground. All of this was obviously Dayton's arrangement. In order to wipe out Healy's group completely, the first ancestor had assigned specialists based on each of their abilities. In the first ancestor's eyes, compared to Healy and the others, his subordinates were dealing with nothing more than a group of children who lacked combat experience. They had no chance of victory. Today, every last one of them would die at the hands of his subordinates, and tomorrow would be the full moon, the very moment he had waited 1,000 years for. Then Dayton looked at Shioha lying on the stone platform and thought to himself, By now, the princess's power should have been completely released. This power far exceeds my expectations. If the princess had understood back then how to use the hidden power within her, I probably would have had a hard time defeating her. But the princess has scattered her power and sent it into those people, which is not entirely a bad thing for me, no matter how much power those people gain. In my eyes, there's still nothing but grains of sand, not worth even a fraction of me. Just as he was thinking this, under the first ancestor's watchful gaze, Shoha suddenly began to emit a dazzling light. The first ancestor was startled by the sudden sight. Could it be that there was still power left over? At the same time, Sean, Gino, Zaka, and the others, who had just been suppressed by their enemies, also began to undergo strange changes. A power-up had arrived. Sean's eyes flashed with a metallic gleam, and before his enemy could react, Sean slammed him from midair down onto the ground. The confidence his enemy had shown moments before vanished entirely. Looking at the foe coughing up blood, Sean fiercely declared that he was this adorable. So how dare anyone bully him? Before Sean could finish speaking, a flash of red light suddenly passed before his eyes. The vampire burst into laughter. "Ha, fooled you, you idiot. From now on, you have no choice but to obey me. My true main ability is to bewilder people's minds. From now on, you'll willingly do anything for me." He then ordered Sean to punch himself in the face a few times. But what a mistake that was. This vampire was showing off mind control in front of Sean himself. Sure enough, the showy moment did not even last 3 seconds. Sean used his own ability and directly changed the vampire's whole tone and demeanor. Then he made the vampire tear out his own heart. The controlled vampire offered no resistance whatsoever. With a flash of red light, the vampire died in a daze. On Gino's side, the blue-haired woman was still chattering away, completely unaware of the change in him. Suddenly, a burst of fire erupted from within the water. The power that had just seemed no stronger than a spark now exploded like an inferno. Gino broke free, but the blue-haired woman was not nearly so fortunate. White smoke rose hissing from all over her body. Judging by the look of it, she was nearly cooked through. Meanwhile, while the brute was still amusing himself with his own chatter, Ian, his eyes glowing gold, caught the punch that was coming down at him with one hand. And with the other fist, he punched the brute so hard that the man nearly lost his soul. The speed freak, who had still been showing off his movement, now froze where he stood. A moment ago, Zaka had looked like little more than a moving target, but now he had vanished from sight, while the speed freak searched all around. A punch suddenly appeared on his face out of nowhere, knocking off his goggles and taking several teeth with them. Even while he was still wondering where Zaka had come from, another blow landed squarely on his face. This time the speed freak completely lost his composure. "I can see all your movements clearly." Then Zaka showed him what real footwork and real speed looked like. The speed freak could do nothing but take a beating under Zaka's speed and movement. He had no chance to fight back at all. And after that, there was no after that for the speed freak. As for the little golden man who loved showing off, he was getting flustered now. Noah demonstrated on the spot what true darkness devouring everything looked like. A black sphere instantly swallowed up the little golden man. The calm, composed look he had earlier was gone, replaced by panic. Still, the little golden man's mouth remained stubborn. "Even so, with my light, your shadow can't touch me at all." Noah, eyes tightly shut, replied, "I never said I was going to use my shadow against you." As soon as he spoke, the trees of the forest began to creak and groan. In the next second, they snapped in half and floated above the little golden man's head, then rained down on him like dumplings dropping into a pot. Youth really is wonderful. He fell asleep the moment he lay down. Soren, whose throat was being clutched by the beast man, now had light flashing in his eyes as well. Then, in a flash of blue light, Soren turned the tables completely and bit down viciously on the beast man's neck. The outcome was easy to imagine. Thus, everyone's battles came to an end. In this fight, aside from Healy, who defeated her enemy by her own strength, everyone else turned defeat into victory only with Shoa's help. So who should get the MVP of this battle? By sending out power without limit like this, was Shoha really suffering no consequences at all? After the battle, everyone behaved as though it were just any ordinary fight and paid little attention to their injuries. Sean still looked as carefree as ever, but Healy noticed something strange about him. She pointed out that the wound on Sean's neck still had not healed. Sean, however, did not care at all, believing that such a minor injury would surely be healed by Shioha very soon. Looking at Sean's wound, together with the bleeding injury on her own body, Healy fell into thought. This is strange. Just now, we really did receive an enormous surge of power, but why are these wounds healing so slowly? As she was thinking this, Ian suddenly interrupted her thoughts. Sister Healy, are you alright? I'm fine. But Zaka, could you go check whether there are any stragglers nearby? After hearing Healy's request, Zaka waved to show he understood. But before he had taken more than 2 steps, a sharp pain shot through his body, leaving him bent over. The pain was exactly where he had been struck earlier by his enemy. The same thing was happening to Gino. He stood off to one side, coughing non-stop, while Ian realized that the bones in his palm had been shattered. Noah's eyesight still had not recovered after his eyes had been injured by the little golden man's glare, and the savage wounds across Soren's body showed no sign of healing whatsoever. All these signs indicated that Shioha's support for them was gradually weakening. Did that mean something was wrong with Shioha's condition now? At that very moment, Zaka suddenly sensed an extremely strong wavelength nearby. Everyone was startled after hearing Zaka's words. Those people, are they hiding nearby, waiting to ambush us? No, not quite. They're moving in the opposite direction from us. But other than us, who else could possibly be their target? As soon as that was said, a bad feeling rose in everyone's hearts. So they hurried toward the place Zaka had mentioned. At last, after daybreak, they arrived where Dungji was, but what they saw made everyone freeze in place. Their bad premonition had come true. The young werewolves were sprawled across the ground in all directions. It was obvious they had gone through a brutal battle. Billy rushed forward and helped Dungji up. Wake up, what happened? Dungji said in a broken voice, those guys attacked us. One of them was a vampire who used electricity. After hearing Dungji's words, Healy's expression changed. He hurriedly asked where that guy was now. Just then, Rustlin slowly crawled upright and answered they took Brotherkin away. Everyone was stunned by Rustlin's words. So what exactly was that electric vampire, Wu Zonghan, after? Meanwhile, Shioha's condition also seemed extremely bad. Would they be able to save Shioha before the ritual began? Because Shioha had transferred all his power to Healy and the young werewolves, the entire group had been drained dry, and his own hair had turned completely white. At that moment, the side effects of transferring his power were finally showing on Shioha's body. As for Dayton, he was furious with Healy's group because every capable subordinate he had sent out had been completely wiped out by them. Looking at the silver-haired Shioha, Dayton sank into thought. He had never expected there to still be remnants of the queen's power inside the princess. If this continued, those people would break in before the ritual even began. That absolutely could not be allowed. No matter what, they had to be stopped. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Kent, who had been captured, slowly regained consciousness. The moment he thought of Shioha, endless panic rose in his heart. He was afraid he wouldn't be able to save Shioha, afraid he would lose him forever like this. And his brothers had followed him all the way here. What if he couldn't protect everyone? As he thought that, Ken sank into endless self-reproach, terrified of losing the people he cherished. If only he had some kind of special power, could the ending be changed? Just as he was thinking that, a voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Lycan, what's going on? What is that voice? Before Ken could think further, a gigantic white wolf appeared within his consciousness. The wolf god continued, Lycan, you are the heir to my bloodline, the wolf god Varg. From birth, you have carried the mission of leading our race. So do not be afraid. You possess a power greater than anyone else's. After hearing the wolf god's words, Ken could barely speak clearly. But I only have half werewolf blood. Even when the full moon rises, I can't transform. I am incomplete. Before King could finish, the wolf god interrupted him. Lycan, you are not incomplete. You possess an even greater power. You are the moon of our race. You will awaken the true power of our people. Then what should I do? I don't understand what you mean. At the proper time, everything will be told to you by your instincts. Feel what everyone else feels. Become the moon of our race, and use that power to protect your master. Master? Who is that supposed to be? Your instincts will tell you everything. After saying that, the wolf god Varg slowly dispersed. No matter how Ken called out, the wolf god did not appear again. Ken was then delivered by the vampires into Dayton's hands. Looking at the struggling director, Dayton knew he had finally caught the right person. Now everything he needed was in place. Once tonight's full moon rose, everything he wanted would be his. Just as Dayton was still basking in triumph, the ground suddenly bulged upward. Kan burst up and seized Dayton by the throat. Caught off guard by Kan's attack, Dayton had no time to react before Kan pinned him underneath him. As the grip in Kan's hand tightened, Dayton's neck began to creak. Dayton had never expected that Kan, who had looked half dead just moments ago, would suddenly attack him. Kan kept increasing his strength, trying to crush Dayton's throat. Dayton finally reacted and reached for Kan's head with spiritual force. Kan tilted his head and dodged the attack. Then he clamped both hands around Dayton's neck and twisted, hurling him straight into the wall so hard he nearly embedded there. Kan then turned and scooped Shioha up from the altar, anxiously calling his name and trying to wake him. But Shioha was like a doll, giving no response to Kan's calls. Kan was about to carry Shioha out and flee this devil's den when a voice rang out, stopping him in his tracks. "Who gave you permission to touch him? I had intended to spare your lives. It seems that won't be possible now." After hearing Dayton's words, Kan angrily extended his sharp claws, intending to tear apart the culprit who had harmed Shioha. Unexpectedly, Dayton directly threatened Kan with his companion's safety and ordered him to surrender. Then he pressed further against Kan's mental defenses. "Aren't you like Kan in name? How can you ignore the life and death of your own companions?" Faced with Dayton's relentless words, Kan froze in place, not knowing what to do. Once Dayton was sure Kan wouldn't attack him, he grew even more arrogant and viciously beat the young werewolf. "Fool, you seem deeply devoted to the princess too. Then you should abandon your own kind and save the princess. If you keep wavering between both sides, in the end you won't save anyone at all." In the end, under Dayton's torment, Kan finally lost consciousness as Dayton wished and was locked in a prison cell. Meanwhile, after learning Kan had been taken by the vampires, the group decided to go save him. But the two of them were covered in wounds after the vampires' attack. The young werewolves had it even worse. They couldn't even stand up anymore. Just then, Ruslan suddenly thought of something and said to Healy, "Have that Shoha guy heal us the way he did before, then we could go save Kansas." But Healy refused without even thinking. "That isn't something we can just demand." "What do you mean it isn't? Didn't you say he would help us?" "Shoha has already done everything he could for us. We can't keep relying on him to help us. Our own problems have to be solved by ourselves." Healy's words made everyone nod in agreement. At that moment, Gino suggested that they slow down a little and recover from their injuries. As long as the sun hadn't set, the vampires wouldn't dare come out openly. Yeah, that's right. As Noah moved forward to help Ruslan, no one expected Ruslan to reject his help outright. Instead, he muttered sourly from the side, "I don't need your help. I never asked any of you to help me." Before Ruslan could finish, a chill suddenly ran down everyone's spine. Countless low-level vampires poured out from the forest and rushed at them with mouths wide open. These vampires didn't care at all about the sunlight. They all charged straight at the group, and fierce fighting broke out. Though these vampires weren't individually very strong, there were simply too many of them. Very quickly, everyone was dragged into a hard battle. These bastards, they're charging in so recklessly. Could it be that we're already close to the moon altar? But no matter how many subordinates they have, it still doesn't make sense for them to attack this blindly. As Noah was thinking that, his vision suddenly went white. Everything before his eyes seemed covered by a thick white veil. In an instant, he couldn't see anything ahead. Fortunately, Ian appeared in time and drove back the vampire attacking him. But Ian's own situation wasn't good either. His palms were trembling uncontrollably. The bones in his hands had practically shattered, and he couldn't put any strength into them. The situation was extremely unfavorable for Healy and the young werewolves. Just then, Healy shouted, "Everyone protect the werewolves. Noah, come with me and clear the way. Gino, cover the rear." "Got it, brother Healy." Soren ignored Ruslan's complaints and still carried him on his back. But Ruslan's constant noise was getting on Soren's nerves. "Shut up already. Be quiet. I don't have the energy to listen to all that right now. I already told you not to bother with me." Before Ruslan could finish, he was struck speechless by the terrifying wounds on Soren's body. I told you to be quiet. Don't make everyone else worry." After a full day of fighting, the group now had a dense swarm of low-level vampires trailing behind them. And on top of that, they had to protect the young werewolves who could no longer fight. Everyone was already at their limit. Sean could barely remain standing anymore. But when he thought of how everyone was still fighting with everything they had, the only belief supporting him was that he couldn't become a burden to the others. As for Noah, after fighting this long, he could barely see anything with his eyes. He could no longer even distinguish friend from foe. But the moment he thought that if he stopped fighting, his brothers would be in danger, he kept going despite his injuries. Gino, guarding the rear, was now panting heavily from exhaustion, without even the strength left to make fire. Up front, Healy held down his trembling hands, exposing the unease in his heart. He was afraid that because of him, everyone had been dragged into danger. Just as he was thinking that, a voice suddenly rang out. "I didn't expect you people to still be alive after making it this far. How pitiful." Right in front of Healy, another army of vampires appeared. This was Shibuenur, a place where we high-ranking vampires live. Faced with such despair, would Healy's exhausted group really be forced to stop here? Healy and the young werewolves were already running on fumes. After finally dealing with the fodder vampires, they unexpectedly found another group of vampires blocking their path. The vampires barring the way stared at them with amused expressions, then said disdainfully, "Ah, it looks like you can barely even stand. But even so, we can't exactly go easy on you. Let's end you right here." With that, the vampires extended their sharp claws and attacked the group. But in the next instant, Dungji suddenly leapt down from Zaka's back and sent the vampire before them flying with a single swipe. Then he said to Healy and the others, "Thank you for helping me this far. The moon has already begun to rise. Now, let's take you the rest of the way." The young werewolves immediately launched into fierce battle with the vampires. One vampire against one werewolf. They coordinated with each other, and the vampires blocking the way. No longer had the arrogance they had shown before. Before anyone realized it, the full moon had risen. Dungji also began uncontrollably transforming into wolf form. Nazak, Taha, Camille, take Healy and the others to the moon altar. If you're late, it'll be bad. But unexpectedly, before they had taken more than a few steps, Taha's ankle was struck by a vampire attack, and he fell heavily to the ground. "Taha, Zaka, are you all right?" "I'm fine, but this guy..." Before Taha could finish speaking, a vampire lunged straight at them. Its sharp claws were just about to tear into the two of them. Fortunately, Nazak stepped in front of them just in time and blocked the fatal blow. Then Sean, from behind, swung his hand and neatly sent the vampire on its way. "Put me down. I can still keep fighting. There's no time. Aren't we supposed to get there before the moon fully rises? We'll hold things here. Hurry to the moon altar and save Shioha." But before Sean could finish, Healy cut him off. "Then I'm counting on you. Once you've finished them off, come after us quickly." With the vampires no longer pinning them down, Healy's group rushed toward the moon altar. At the same time, strange changes were also occurring there. A massive force was circling above the altar. Looking at this enormous, swirling power, a sickly smile spread across Dayton's face. The power is gathering. So this is the power passed down through generations of the ancient kingdom. Merely standing nearby, he could already feel its extraordinary force, as expected of the true royal power. This is what the queen and the princess possessed. As he thought that, golden light suddenly welled up from Shioa's body and floated into the air. Seeing this strange phenomenon, Dayton froze. How is this possible? That should only be the power left behind by the queen. The princess's power hasn't even started being extracted yet. As the altar continued to change, Healy and the others, who were still advancing, seemed to sense something. Tears streamed down their faces, and an overwhelming feeling of helplessness washed over them. At that moment, Dayton on the altar seemed to sense that Healy's group had arrived. He turned to look behind him. "Why did you come only now? It's already too late." When Healy and the others reached the altar, they all stood there in a daze as they looked at Shioha on the altar, his head full of silver hair. Shioha's hair turned white. Was it because of us? Because he gave us his power? Is that why this happened? Just as they were thinking that, golden light suddenly began to radiate from their bodies. Before they could understand what was happening, all the golden light surged toward the altar and flowed into Shioha's body. The power he gave us, it's flowing back into Shioha. Is it because of this ritual? No. Before that, we have to deal with that guy first. Thinking this, Healy was about to use telepathy to tell his brothers the battle plan. But to his surprise, after using his power, his brothers showed no reaction at all. A terrifying thought emerged in Healy's mind. Our powers are disappearing. He knew he couldn't keep waiting like this, so he ordered Zaka to save Shioha, while he himself would hold Dayton back. But Healy hadn't expected there to be more than one vampire in the altar. The little golden-haired man was hiding in the shadows, waiting for a chance to act. The little golden-haired man gathered energy between his hands. With a snap of his fingers, he knocked down He and the others just as they were about to move, pinning them to the ground and rendering them unable to move. As he kept up the attack, He, Zaka, and the others were all tormented by the electric current. Then the little golden-haired man said to Dayton, "Lord Dayton, you needn't trouble yourself with this side." After eliminating the thorn in his side, Dayton felt especially pleased. "Then let's begin the ritual now." He dragged the director to his side and pressed his foot onto Shoa's neck, saying blandly, "You know what to do next, don't you? If you don't want the princess to get hurt, then you'd better not do anything pointless. While I'm still being polite, you'd best behave." Before Dayton could finish, the fierce director bit off his own tongue, completely cutting off Dayton's hopes. Enraged and humiliated, Dayton kicked the director aside, then turned to the little golden-haired man and said, "Stop, don't kill them yet." The little golden-haired man was taken aback. Then he said, "Understood." Before he could finish speaking, however, Soren, transformed into a giant wolf, silently appeared behind him. With a thunderous crash, the giant wolf Soren bit hard into the little golden-haired man's neck. At that moment, the man's power faltered, and the lightning coiling around He and the others slowly disappeared. At that instant, He sprang up and shouted Dayton's name, then charged straight at him. Faced with the fierce, oncoming He, Dayton showed no fear at all. Instead, he grinned. "Someone like you is no match for me now." Then he drove a kick into He's stomach and sneered, "Don't you think this is hilarious? You used to be the kingdom's strongest knight, and now you're kneeling in front of me. Very soon, all of you will lose every bit of your power. Once the princess's power disappears from you, you'll be nothing at all. You're about to experience that for yourselves." Meanwhile, the little golden-haired man recovered and broke free from Soren's restraint, then smashed Soren to the ground with a backhand blow. Just as he was about to deal the killing blow to Soren, several giant wolves suddenly appeared behind him. There was a flash of red light, and the little golden-haired man's long life came to an end. The battle on that side caught Dayton's attention. In that brief moment of distraction, He seized the chance and stabbed Dayton with one strike. Just as Dayton was about to strike back at He, a giant wolf suddenly rushed into the altar, bit into Dayton's neck, and slammed him down off the altar in one motion. Once Dayton was knocked off, He hurriedly called Shoa's name. Realizing the altar was still a dangerous place, He decided to take Shoha and flee. But just as he reached the edge of the altar, an unknown force blocked the two of them. Damn it, what's going on? Some unknown force is stopping Shoha from leaving this altar. Is it because of the ritual? Has the ritual trapped Shoha here? What do I do? How can I stop that ritual? Just then, Shoha's ragged breathing pulled He back to reality. "Shoha, are you all right? Shoha, wake up. Can you hear me?" But no matter how He called to him, Shoha gave no response. Seeing Shoha's breathing grow weaker and weaker, He pulled him tightly in his arms and said, "Shoha, didn't you say in our last life that in the next one, we would become people who held nothing back from each other? But there are still things I haven't said to you. Shoha, when I bit your neck, I felt fear as though death itself had arrived. Yet at the same time, I felt dazed as though I had been reborn. It wasn't because that moment proved that I wouldn't bite you, that I was a safe vampire who posed no threat to you. It was because in that instant, I felt just how much you trusted me and how important you were to me. But Shoha, that actually wasn't all. Shoha, I remember you once said that although you bit Chris when you were little, you couldn't bite me now because we weren't children anymore. Even though I acted like I didn't care back then, it wasn't like that at all. That night, the instant my teeth touched your neck, the sound of your breathing by my ear made my heart panic. The pulse I felt inside your veins made me so nervous. And when my lips touched your skin, it made my blood burn. All this time, I've kept these feelings hidden in my heart. I wasn't hoping you would bite me with the childish mindset of a close friend. It was precisely because we're no longer children that I wanted you to bite me. So, Shoha, if you wake up again, then this time, please bite me. No matter what, I will definitely get you out of here. So when that time comes, before He could finish, a faint voice sounded beside his ear. After hearing Shoa's words, He stood frozen in a daze. Then a huge surge of joy welled up from the bottom of his heart. He, this time you came to save me again. Back then and now, that has always been how I felt. He climbed back onto the altar once again. After hearing Shoa's words, Dayton nearly ground his teeth to pieces. Back then or now, you're always the one ruining everything. Then Dayton grabbed He by the throat, his eyes blood red, and said, "As long as you're gone." climbed back onto it again. After hearing Shoha's words, Dayton nearly ground his teeth to pieces. Back then and now, you always ruin everything. Then he grabbed Healy by the throat, his eyes blood red, and said, as long as you aren't here, the princess would definitely choose me. At least in this life, she definitely would. And Healy slowly began to lose consciousness from Dayton's choking grip. Just as he was on the verge of dying, Shoha tightly wrapped his arms around Healy. In the next second, Shoha activated his power and vanished from Dayton's grasp. Looking at the unconscious Healy, Shoha was frantic with worry. But even his ability could not carry him out of the altar. And in that brief lapse, Dayton arrived right on cue and kicked Healy out of the altar with one blow. Their final hope had been kicked away from the altar. So what could Shoha do now? Looking at Shoha, who kept pounding against the barrier of light, Dayton said flatly, Shoha, it's all over. All those people who came to save you have fallen, and I still have plenty of subordinates left. The power you divided among those people has already returned completely to your body, and the power you have regained will all be absorbed by this altar. In the end, it will all fall into my hands. At this point, Dayton could no longer suppress his delight and broke into triumphant laughter. Meanwhile, Shoha stood to the side, frantically searching for a way out. But Dayton's next words shattered his last hope. Once this ritual begins, you cannot leave this altar. Until I take everything from you and make you mine, you will never leave this place. After hearing Dayton's words, Shoha glared viciously at the man in front of him. Dayton, however, yanked Shoha upright, utterly unconcerned by that hostile stare. Suddenly, Shoha's eyes flicked downward and he spotted a long sword lying on the altar. He spun and grabbed it, slashing at Dayton. Dayton's expression turned serious, but the gap in strength between them was simply too great. Before Shoha could even make a real move, Dayton subdued him and rendered him unable to move. Meanwhile, beneath the altar, Healy was slowly sinking into the water. His entire body felt as though it had shattered, and he didn't even have the strength to move a finger. Healy felt even more guilty. Whenever we were hurt before, Shoha, you were always the one healing us. The powers we had were all given to us by you. You were always helping us. So why can't I save you now? Without your power, would I truly be nothing? And if I really am nothing without it, and that's why I can't save you, then what am I supposed to do? On the altar, Dayton darkly told Shoha, we've come this far. Do you really think you can stop me? Then he clenched hard with one hand, and the long sword in his grasp slipped from the altar, dropped with a splash into the water, and landed not far from Healy. At that moment, Healy opened his eyes and saw the long sword within arm's reach. The mysterious pattern appeared again on the back of his hand. Shoha's power should have completely disappeared from us already. So why hasn't the pattern on the back of my hand vanished? Just as Healy was thinking that, a new change occurred on the altar. Shoha looked at the man before him with disgust and said he would rather die than let Dayton have his power. Dayton, after hearing that, looked utterly unconcerned. Want to escape by reincarnating? Fine, go ahead. No matter how long I have to wait for you, I can do it. No matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, I will find you. But Shoha, during this life, while you grew up with no memories of your past life, how many innocent people around you died? Have you forgotten? Why was there always gossip wherever you lived saying you were a vampire? Why were there always so many vampire attacks around you? Why was it your friend Chris's home that caught fire? Why did Chris die when he was still so young? Then Dayton changed tack and said viciously, Chris died because of you. Because after you forgot your memories of your previous life, you became friends with him. Because you treasured him more than anyone. That's why I stole his place. After hearing Dayton's soul-piercing questions, Shoha's mind went completely blank. He stood there in a daze, not even noticing that Dayton had placed a hand on his face. You may not have known what was happening in this life, but what will happen in the next life? Even after knowing it all, you'll still choose the same, won't you? After all now, you already know exactly what kind of person I am. If you want the people around you in your next life to die by my hand too, then go ahead and try to run. As he spoke, Dayton began forcing himself on Shoha. Just as he was about to kiss him, Shoha secretly gathered strength and then slapped Dayton hard across the face. Seeing the determination in Shoha's eyes, Dayton said almost teasingly, too late. Shoha, if you wanted to fight me, you should have done it sooner. When you were still thinking about escaping through reincarnation. Then he seized Shoha by the throat. With the little power you have left now, you can't kill me. Your inability to properly use your own power has always been the same, then and now. That's why I want to take it from you. You aren't worthy of possessing such great power. I, on the other hand, can put it to much better use. Don't worry, you only need to sleep for a little while. I'll take care of everything else. Just then, a loud crash interrupted Dayton's speech. He turned his head and saw that somehow Healy had climbed out of the water. At that moment, Healy was frantically smashing the cages holding the werewolves. As Healy continued destroying them, Dayton cursed under his breath, sensing disaster. But it was too late. The werewolf army, having seen daylight again, charged straight toward the altar. In the blink of an eye, they had climbed onto it. A new round of battle was about to begin. So then, could the werewolf army save Shioha from Dayton's hands? Let's wait and see. The freed werewolves all roared and charged at Dayton. For the first time, panic showed on his face. He struggled desperately to block the werewolves' attacks. Meanwhile, Healy wasn't idle either and continued smashing the cages that held the werewolves. Even though both his hands were trembling, a single belief kept supporting him. It didn't matter if he himself had nothing. It didn't matter if all his power disappeared. Even if countless obstacles stood in front of him, he would save Shioha no matter what. Carrying that determination, Healy pushed his body past its limits again and again. At that moment, Healy suddenly cried out in pain. A beam of light flared from the overworked hand he was swinging. The mysterious pattern from before had appeared again. What's going on? Shioha shouldn't be able to give us power anymore. Reality, however, gave Healy no time to think. Cries of pain rang out in his ears. The werewolves who had rushed onto the altar were falling one after another to Dayton's hands. But there were simply too many werewolves, forcing Dayton onto the defensive. Seeing that Healy was still destroying the werewolf cages, Dayton's face filled with anxiety. Stop that guy quickly. The vampires, hearing the command, swarmed toward Healy, but suddenly, numerous werewolves stood in front of him and clashed with the incoming vampires. With no one left to stop him, Healy continued smashing cages and freeing werewolves. After destroying who knew how many, his eyes suddenly lit up. Looking carefully, the person lying inside one of the cages was an old familiar face. It was the young werewolf Kansas. Healy split the cage open at once. Wake up, Ken. Are you all right? Healy, there's no time to explain. Shioha is in danger. We have to hurry. Before Healy could finish, the vampire in front of them interrupted him. Just as the vampire was about to claim credit for himself, a giant wolf suddenly sprang out of the cell and sent the vampire straight to hell in a single bite. Meanwhile, Dayton on the altar was being driven nearly mad by the werewolves. Why do they all keep coming this way? If I just hold out a little longer, unfortunately for Dayton, that beautiful thought was interrupted by a gigantic maw. Before he could react, Ken transformed into a giant wolf, knocked him to the ground, and viciously bit into his head. The crunching sounds echoed across the altar. Dayton struggled with all his might. He finally managed to break free from Ken's bite, only for Ken to slam him back to the ground and pin him there, unable to move. Panting heavily, Dayton saw that the ritual had been ruined and simply decided to drag everything down with him. The gathered power above the altar was directly blasted into the sky by Dayton. With a tremendous crash, the entire altar began to shake violently. The amassed energy surged upward and directly scattered the brilliance of the full moon. The whole space plunged into darkness. The werewolves who had just been fighting the vampires also reverted from wolf form one after another. The moonlight is gone. Everyone's turned human again. Protect Can, it's dangerous. But when Healy turned to deal with Can, the scene before his eyes completely changed what he thought he knew about werewolves. Can was still in giant wolf form, utterly unaffected by the loss of moonlight, and he continued pinning Dayton beneath him. Without the moonlight, the werewolves who had turned back into humans had barely a fraction of their former fighting strength. They began falling to the vampires one by one, crying out in pain. After all, Ken was the only one not affected by the absence of moonlight. That miserable sight drew Ken's attention. In the moment that Ken was distracted, Dayton grinned and swiped Ken off him with a single claw. Seeing this, Healy immediately rushed toward Dayton, but he was still one step too late. The despicable Dayton directly took Shioha hostage again. So where would the story go now? What disgusting methods would Dayton use next to torment Healy and Can? Let us look forward to what comes next. What exactly forced Can and Healy to lower their proud heads and kneel before Dayton's feet? Just now, Ken was briefly distracted and Dayton escaped from under his claws. With that, Ken missed the best chance to kill him. Seeing he couldn't defeat the two of them head-on, Dayton simply took Shioha hostage. Looking at Dayton's villainous expression, Healy was so angry he couldn't speak. With Shioha's life in Dayton's hands, the two of them had no choice but to obey. To their surprise, Dayton's first command was for Healy to put down his weapon and for Can to return to human form. Forced by the situation, the two could only comply, abandoning all means of attack. Then Dayton grew even more excessive and began barking further orders at them. He directly commanded both men to kneel. Ken at first thought he had heard wrong, but Daiden continued to threaten them with Shioa's life. Seeing that they still hesitated, he suddenly tightened the hand around Shioa's throat. Shioa's neck was left bruised and mottled under Daiden's grip. Seeing the madness in Daiden's expression, the two did not doubt for a second that he would truly harm Shioha. And so, under his threats, they were forced to kneel before him. At this, Daiden's face broke into a satisfied smile. Good, that's how it should be. Surely you wouldn't let some useless pride kill the princess, would you? Now then, the two of you are to swear that you will be loyal to me, submit to me from now on, and regard me as your eternal master. If you swear allegiance to me, then I will mercifully spare your lives. But before Daiden could finish, the furious Ken interrupted him. What kind of idiotic dream are you talking about? Daiden's face darkened. You still haven't understood the situation, have you? This isn't just about your own life anymore. Then Daiden made Li and Ken look behind them. Zaka, Ian, and the others had already been seized by the vampires. The werewolves weren't doing well either, surrounded tightly by a crowd of vampires. At a single command from Daiden, all those captured would lose their lives instantly. When he saw the panic on the two men's faces, Daiden roared with satisfaction. As long as you swear loyalty to me, the princess, your younger brothers, and your own kin can all be saved. You're Lycaon in name, aren't you? Are you really planning to abandon your own race? Do you want to watch your little brothers die? Even if I twist Shioa's neck off right now, would the two of you still not care? Each of Daiden's questions stabbed deeply into Can and Li's hearts. They hated him so much they wanted to rip flesh from his body with their teeth. But the initiative was entirely in Daiden's hands now. Faced with this choice, both of them fell into silent thought. Seeing that neither of them answered, Daiden's patience finally ran out. He directly struck the dazed Li with a heavy blow. Then a storm of attacks rained down on Li's body. Speak, say it, swear that you will be loyal to me forever. Seeing Li being beaten, Zaka, Sean, and the others were frantic with worry. If they had even a little power left, they would have rushed forward to save him. But their abilities had already vanished. One was completely blind, and they themselves had all become hostages. After some time, Daiden still hadn't gotten the answer he wanted from Li. Li had already been beaten unconscious. Daiden then turned to the others. Fine, then let's do this. We may not need him after all. As long as one of you swears loyalty to me in his place, your brother can live. After waiting for a while and receiving no answer, Daiden kicked Li off the altar as though he were tossing away a bag of trash. So then, could Li create a miracle once more and turn disaster into safety? The sight of Daiden kicking Li off the altar deeply shocked everyone below. Noah broke free from the vampire's hold and ran forward. Because he could no longer see, he could only run through endless darkness. Where is he? Which direction? He couldn't see what was in front of him or get his bearings. In the end, everything had become complete darkness. Why won't the tears stop? Why am I so afraid? Is it because I'll never be able to see again? Am I afraid of the dark? No. How could that be? I stopped being afraid of darkness a long time ago. If there are shadows, I can perceive everything even more clearly than when my eyes are open. That's right. Darkness is my domain. Shadows are a part of my body. Even if I can't see, my body can still feel. In this darkness, find brother Li's location. As Noah thought that, a mysterious pattern suddenly lit up on his arm. With the support of that pattern, he clearly found the falling Li. At the very instant Li was about to crash down, Noah activated his power. A mass of black mist accurately caught the unconscious Li. Brother Li, are you okay? Noah, your power has come back? I don't know. I thought I'd never be able to use my power again. But strangely enough, I suddenly had the feeling that this power originally belonged to me. No, that's not it. I'm sure of it. After hearing Noah's words, Li looked at the glowing pattern on the back of his hand and fell into thought. Noah's right. I also found it strange before. Even though the power Shioha gave us was clearly taken away completely, the pattern on the back of our hands never disappeared. Could it be because before Shioha ever gave me power, we had already become vampire nobles through receiving Shioha's blood? At that realization, Li's gaze gradually became firm. That's right. That's the reason. All this time, because we kept using the power Shioha gave us, we forgot something. Shioha only increased our power, but we ourselves already possess the power unique to vampire nobles. At that moment, the pattern on the back of He Li's hand also began to shine with dazzling light and countless golden lines. They spread from the mysterious pattern across He Li's body. In an instant, they covered him completely. In a moment those golden lines spread all over him, He Li's power awakened once more. Entrusted with the heavy burden of resisting the vampires, countless memories surfaced in He Li's mind. Brothers, listen carefully. Even though the power Shioha gave us has now disappeared, our original abilities are still there. We always thought that the power Shioha gave us was all the power we had, but it wasn't. We kept relying on the power Shioha gave us, so we forgot the true power that originally belonged to us. Then He Li shared with them memories of the ancient kingdom's rebellion and the image of fighting beside the grand progenitor. Those scenes appeared before everyone's eyes one after another. Seeing themselves in battle, they could hardly believe it. That's clearly me. Could that be my past self? Did I already have powers back then? Then He Li continued, hurry and remember. Remember the true power we possess. After he finished speaking, the others began to undergo the same change as He Li. Countless glowing lines spread from the mysterious pattern across their bodies. The moment the first ancestor saw the changes in the crowd, the calm expression on his face instantly vanished. You fools, all this effort is useless. The princess cannot be saved. Before the first ancestor could finish, there was a loud bang. The dean slammed into him, knocking him off balance, and his control over Shioha loosened. Just as the first ancestor was about to strike the dean dead, Zaka flashed forward and directly rescued both Shioha and the dean from his grasp. At the same time, after seeing Shioha taken away, Kin seized the chance, transformed instantly, and pinned the first ancestor hard beneath him. The horn of counterattack was about to sound, with their power restored, and with the dean risking his life to help them. They had finally rescued Shioha from the first ancestor's hands. Just as Zaka landed with the two people he had saved, a huge wave of vampires rushed toward him. Escape was impossible. At that moment, Sean descended from the sky and stood in front of the three of them. He activated his hypnosis ability, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. The vampires charging forward all stopped in their tracks under that eerie light. From this moment on, go and bring me the heads of your own kind. After receiving Sean's command, those low-level vampires immediately turned on each other and began attacking their own allies. Meanwhile, the first ancestor, pinned down by Can, let out a cry of pain from beneath him. Seeing the first ancestor suffering so terribly, the blonde man leaped forward to save him. Unexpectedly, before he had taken more than 2 steps, a huge wall of fire blocked his path. You actually dare stand in my way? The one blocking the blonde man was Gino. Seeing his path obstructed, countless bolts of lightning burst from the blonde man's body. Gino did not stay idle either and unleashed his own power. In the next second, endless flames and lightning collided. With a loud boom, the blonde man was blasted away by Gino's flames. Elsewhere, the little werewolves had lost their transformed state, and the vampires were pressing closer and closer. They were almost out of retreat options. The vampires seized the chance to launch an attack, but though they rushed in quickly, they died just as quickly. In just a few breaths, Soren split the vampires charging at him cleanly in two. But there were simply too many vampires. The left side was breached, and the little werewolves were in mortal danger. Just as Soren turned around to save them, in his urgency, he exposed his back to the vampires. How could the vampires miss such a perfect opportunity? Countless hands reached for Soren, and in an instant he was swallowed up by the swarm. Whether he lived or died was unknown. And with Soren no longer protecting them, the little werewolves were immediately overwhelmed by the vampires. Their screams echoed through the cramped altar. On the altar, the first ancestor seized the opportunity and grabbed Kin by the throat, forcefully lifting his wolf head. Kin, using all his strength, kept pressing down. For a moment, the two were locked in a dead stalemate. Seeing this, Kin inwardly cursed. If the moonlight hadn't been cut off, how could his kin have ended up like this? As he thought that, the teachings of the wolf god suddenly surfaced in his mind. Lycaon, you are the inheritor chosen by wolf god Varg. You are the moon of our race. You will awaken the true power of our people. When the necessary day comes, your instinct will tell you everything. So resonate with everyone. Become the moon of your race, and use this power to protect the master you serve. After understanding everything, Kin let out a wolf howl. His whole body radiated dazzling light. Under the illumination of that light, The werewolves who had been unable to transform instantly transformed. All the transformed werewolves gathered beneath the altar, raised their heads, and let out howl after howl. Even Soren, who had just been dragged into the vampire horde, transformed into a giant wolf under Can's influence. He directly slaughtered his way out of the vampires' encirclement. As for the vampires who had been attacking Can just moments ago, where was their former ferocity now? One by one, they stood frozen in terror. But the freshly transformed werewolves showed them no mercy and charged straight at the vampires before them. Meanwhile, the first ancestor on the altar was secretly making a move. He had planned to catch Can off guard and strike him with a fatal blow. But just as his hand reached out, Ian seized it. Ian wasted no words. Raising his right hand, he smashed his fist straight into the first ancestor's face. What followed was a storm of merciless blows. Under that barrage, the first ancestor was beaten beyond recognition. Even his front teeth were knocked out. Just as Ian was about to continue, intending to erase the first ancestor from this world, the first ancestor suddenly spoke in a broken voice. Now it's enough. Stop everything." As his words fell, an immense force erupted from the first ancestor's body. Two figures were thrown down from the altar. Everyone was startled. Could it be that the first ancestor still had a hidden reserve of power, even in such a disadvantageous situation? What kind of mad move would he make next? Driven to a dead end, the first ancestor's body burst with tremendous energy. It directly blasted Ian and Can off the altar. Facing the attacks from both sides, the first ancestor knew his plan had failed. There was no way to salvage it now. In despair, the first ancestor looked at the people below the altar and muttered softly, "I don't need anything anymore. I don't want the princess's power, and I don't want the princess either. If I can't live together with the princess, then dying together isn't bad either." As soon as he finished speaking, the altar's stone walls could no longer bear the impact of his power. Cracks spread and twisted across the altar floor. At the same time, waves of rumbling thundered through the chamber. While everyone below the altar was still wondering what was happening, a huge boulder suddenly fell from above. Only then did Healy realize that the altar was collapsing. Countless massive stones fell from the sky. Before anyone could react, one after another, they came crashing down toward the crowd. Seeing this, Noah hurriedly used his power to hold the falling stones in place and save them. He rescued Healy, Zaka, and Shioha from the shower of rocks. But controlling so many falling boulders placed far too much strain on Noah. Under that immense pressure, Noah hurriedly said to Healy, "Brother Healy, hurry and save Shioha. I can't hold on much longer." Hearing Noah's words, Healy finally snapped out of his daze. "Right? I have to save Shioha now." Then Healy turned and rushed toward where Shioha was. After great difficulty, he finally spotted the unconscious Shioha among the falling rocks. But at that very moment, Noah's power could no longer keep the boulders under control. A massive stone fell from above and struck the running Healy. With a heavy crash, Healy was pinned beneath it. On the other side, Zaka and Shioha were also in grave danger. The shadow holding back the boulders was gradually fading. After a tremendous crash, Zaka and Shioha were buried beneath the giant rocks as well, their fate unknown. The altar continued to collapse rapidly, and more people were struck by the falling stones. And the one responsible for all of this, after seeing the horrific scene before him, closed his eyes in satisfaction. His body swayed as he fell from the altar. At that moment, the altar's collapse caused by the first ancestor's power also came to a stop. The inside of the altar was a scene of utter devastation. Even the water within it had been dyed red. Just then, a pile of stones at the edge of the altar suddenly rattled loudly. With a whoosh, the pile of rubble was flung aside by the first ancestor. His mangled body staggered forward as he muttered incoherently, "Siren, where are you? Siren was beside you just now." At those words, the first ancestor stopped in his tracks. Before him was Healy, who had been crushed down by the rocks. Healy struggled to open his eyes and looked at the first ancestor approaching step by step. The first ancestor also raised his hand. "That's right. At the very least, before I die, I'll kill you." Then came a wet ripping sound, and blood sprayed into the air. The first ancestor's hand had viciously pierced Shioha's body, while Lee's sword had also plunged into the first ancestor. For a moment, both of them froze. Neither had imagined that Shioha would awaken at this moment, and that to protect Lee, she would use her own body to block the first ancestor's attack. Looking at the huge wound on Shioha's body, the first ancestor unconsciously staggered back 2 steps, pulling his hand out of her body. It was obvious that his mind had completely collapsed. Lee was no better off. He held Shioha tightly and said uncontrollably, "Shioha, why? Why are you protecting me again? Just like back then? We must be reborn and meet again. No matter if it's thousands of years or tens of thousands of years, I will definitely find you. I will definitely wait for you. When that time comes, I will definitely protect you well." Could it be that this time there truly would be no miracle? Could Shioha create a miracle once again?